Here's a summary of the escape of the three fugitives, Haj Mohammed, Maulana Sheikh Marzouk, and Mr. Mahjoub al-Hilali, based on the text. Initial flight. After learning from Omar's mother that the police had raided her house and arrested Omar, Osman al-Taib, and Zakia, the three men panicked. They fled on foot to a nearby village called Delesa, which took them about 4 hours to reach. Deception in Delesa. On arrival, they approached the village imam, claiming they were on religious, social, and political campaigns, touring 25 villages. The imam welcomed them warmly, calling villagers to the mosque for night prayers. The villagers were thrilled to host such prominent figures. The famous politician Mahjoub al-Hilali. The Grand Mosque Imam Maulana Sheikh Marzouk. The witch doctor Haj Mohammed. Villagers showered them with respect, blessings, and even money. Haj Mohammed's departure. Haj Mohammed decided to leave first, taking a risky bus journey back to Gadaref. The bus was overcrowded, about 100 passengers plus livestock, and the road was rough, making the trip hazardous. The other two follow. Later, Mahjoub al-Hilali and Maulana Sheikh Marzouk grew tired of village life. Mahjoub insisted on leaving because he missed his favorite TV series. They agreed to return if newspapers showed no mention of their involvement in the crime. However, when the village imam read the papers, his mood turned hostile, hinting at trouble for the fugitives. Excerpts from the novel. Meanwhile, the great sorcerer Haj Muhammad Abkar Morsal, the imam of the Grand Mosque, Maulana Sheikh Marzouk, and the famous politician, Syed Mahjoub al-Hilali, fled to a nearby village called Delesa. The three cowards ran away when they learned from Omar's mother of the police raid on her house. She told them that 5 policemen had arrested her sick son, Omar, Mr. Osman al-Taib, and his personal secretary, Zakia. The remaining 3 criminals immediately ran away and headed to that village on foot. It took them 4 hours to get there. The fugitives told the imam of the mosque, who is the head of the village Delesa, that they were involved in religious, social, and political campaigns. They claimed to be doing tours in 25 villages. The imam became happy to receive them in his village that night. He called every villager to the night prayer in the only mosque in his village. And when the news spread that the famous politician, Mr. Mahjoub al-Hilali, the virtuous imam of the Grand Mosque in the city of Gadaref, His Eminence Maulana Sheikh Marzouk, and the great witch doctor, Haj Muhammad Abkar Morsal, had come to bless the village Delesa and its people, everyone came to receive blessings and healing. The imam of the village, due to respect and religious difference in experience and knowledge of Islam, descended from his pulpit and asked Maulana Sheikh Marzouk to lead the male believers in the evening prayer and deliver the sermon. After 5 minutes of prayer, Maulana al-Mubarak spoke about the ideal marriage in Islam that night. In the text, the villagers of Delesa were blessed by 2 prominent figures, Maulana Sheikh Marzouk and Haj Muhammad Abkar Morsal. When news spread that these men had come to bless the village, everyone gathered to receive blessings and healing. The local imam stepped down from his pulpit out of respect and invited Maulana Sheikh Marzouk to lead the evening prayer and deliver a sermon. After the prayer, Maulana spoke about the ideal marriage in Islam. Villagers expressed reverence by kissing his hands and feet, offering gifts and money, and bringing their children for blessings. Maulana blessed male children by placing his hands on their heads and spitting on their faces, but refused to touch female children, claiming they were impure. Some villagers even drank the water used by Maulana for ablution, believing it carried divine grace. School children asked him to bless their pens and books for success in exams, and he did so by spitting on them. Many sick people came seeking healing through his perceived piety. As for Haj Muhammad, he was regarded as a great witch doctor. Villagers hugged him, kissed his hands, and gave him money before his departure, shedding tears as he left. Excerpts from the text. When the imam finished his sermon, many villagers came forward and kissed his hands and feet. Some of them gave him gifts and money. They also brought their children to be blessed through his righteousness and piety. His Holiness Maulana blessed the male children by placing his hands on their heads and spitting on their faces. However, he refused to touch the bodies of female children because, as he claimed, they are impure women, lacking in religion and intellect. Therefore, the Honorable Imam does not want to defile his pure body by touching these impure little creatures. Some of the villagers drank the water that the blessed Imam used to wash his hands, arms, face, mouth, nose, ears, head, and feet during ablution. Some of the school children brought their pens, pencils, books, and notebooks and asked the blessed Imam to pass on to them his divine mercy and karamah and help them succeed in their school exams. He responded to their requests by spitting on their school supplies as well. Many sick people came to the mosque to receive healing, but Maulana passed this responsibility to Hajj Muhammad. Likewise, the mighty magician put his heavy hands on the bodies of the sick male villagers and spat on the faces of the other men, and then drove them away. The Imam of the village did not allow any of the females to approach the sanctuary of the mosque and desecrate it with their presence, because Islam says the woman is a wara or naked and impure creature. The blessings mattered so much to the villagers because they were deeply tied to their beliefs about health, spirituality, and social status. According to the text, people, including women who often concealed their identities, came from far and wide to receive healing and blessings from revered figures like Hajj Muhammad and Maulana Sheikh Marzouk. These blessings were seen as powerful and miraculous, offering cures for diseases that modern medicine could not treat, such as AIDS, cancer, Ebola, coronavirus, and even infertility. Here are the key reasons why blessings held such significance. Perceived supernatural healing. Villagers believed that blessings, combined with ritual medicines like bokhara, incense from Quranic verses, and mihia, black water from washed Quranic verses, could cure incurable illnesses and bring relief from pain. This gave blessings a life-saving aura. Religious and cultural authority. The Imam's piety and status amplified the value of blessings. People saw physical contact, such as placing hands on children's heads or even spitting on faces, as a conduit of divine favor. Drinking water used in ablution was considered spiritually purifying. Hope and desperation. In a context where medical resources were limited and societal hardships were severe, blessings represented hope. They were a response to fear of disease, infertility, and misfortune, making them emotionally and practically indispensable. Social and spiritual prestige. Receiving blessings was not only about health, but also about gaining spiritual merit and community respect. People offered gifts and money to the Imam, reinforcing the idea that blessings were a rare privilege. The villagers' reactions to the blessings were deeply emotional and reverent. They expressed their gratitude and devotion in several ways. Physical gestures of respect. Many villagers kissed the hands of the healer and hugged him tightly, showing profound admiration and belief in his spiritual power. Generosity. Some gave him substantial amounts of money, reflecting their appreciation and hope for continued blessings. Emotional intensity. They shed hot tears as he departed, indicating a mix of sorrow at his leaving and joy for the blessings they had received. Community support. Even those associated with wrongdoing wished him a safe journey and invoked God's protection, underscoring the healer's elevated status in their eyes. Overall, their reactions combined faith, gratitude, and emotional attachment, portraying the healer as a revered figure whose blessings were considered life-changing. Here's a summary of the symbolic meaning of the blessings and their cultural significance in the story. Symbolic meaning of blessings. Children's names as symbols. Habiba, first daughter, represents deep love and affection between Intisar and Sami. Hanan, second daughter, symbolizes the happiness and harmony of their married life. Munster, first son, signifies triumph of their sincere and strong love against adversity. Khalid, second son, represents eternal love and permanence of their bond. These names are not mere labels. They embody emotional milestones and aspirations, turning imagined blessings into tangible symbols of hope and resilience. Cultural significance. Names and identity. In Sudanese and broader Islamic culture, names carry profound meaning, often reflecting virtues, aspirations, and divine attributes. Here, They reinforce ideals of love, victory, and permanence. Blessing rituals. The reliance on spiritual healers and Quranic-based remedies reflects a cultural intersection of faith, superstition, and patriarchal control, where blessings are sought for health, fertility, and marital stability. Marriage and vows. Public and private vows, infused with religious language, highlight cultural emphasis on marital sanctity and divine witness, even as the story critiques oppressive norms. Gender dynamics. The blessings and rituals underscore societal expectations of women's purity and obedience, revealing tensions between tradition and personal freedom. Maulana's emotional state during the sermon is portrayed as highly charged and intense, reflecting a mix of anger, self-righteousness, and theatricality. Fiery and aggressive, he delivers his sermon with righteous anger, so much so that the crowd responds with prolonged applause and chants of Allahu Akbar. His voice is described as hoarse and likened to that of a ghoul ogre, which conveys a tone of ferocity and menace rather than calm spirituality. Vindictive and condemning, Maulana repeatedly shouts phrases of triumph such as "truth has come and falsehood has vanished," framing the situation as a moral battle. His words drip with condemnation toward the woman he calls a runaway disobedient wife, showing his obsession with enforcing obedience and punishing perceived transgressions. Emotionally inflamed, the text suggests that Maulana's anger escalates to physical signs of agitation. His body shivers, he sweats, and his eyes turn red when challenged. His shouting becomes so loud that neighbors hear and gather, indicating a loss of composure and a descent into rage. Fanatical zeal. His repeated invocations of religious slogans and his willingness to incite public fervor reveal a state of near fanaticism, where personal pride and religious authority merge into a dangerous emotional cocktail. Here's a concise summary of how the emotional state influences both the crowd's reaction and the narrative tension in the text. Influence on crowd's reaction. From awe to aggression, emotional states such as nostalgia, fear, humiliation, and outrage repeatedly transform the crowd from passive observers into volatile actors. For example, romantic wonder in Khartoum creates silence and poetic escapism among friends. Later, courtroom scenes ignite applause, pity, and then suspicion as Osman's tears and heroic facade clash with accusations. Public trials and execution scenes escalate into mass hysteria, chants, stone-throwing, and riots, when religious zeal and moral outrage peak. Emotional contagion. Individual vulnerability. Intisar's terror, Mona's grief, triggers collective reactions, sympathy turning to hostility, curiosity morphing into violence, revealing how personal emotion fuels communal frenzy. Impact on narrative tension. Escalating stakes. Emotional volatility drives the plot from intimate drama to systemic crisis. Romantic hesitation and secrecy foreshadow danger. Anger and humiliation in offices and courts deepen ideological conflict between modern autonomy and patriarchal norms. Fear and despair during arrest and imprisonment heighten suspense, culminating in life-or-death confrontations. Foreshadowing and irony, scenes oscillate between fleeting hope, dreams of freedom, and looming tragedy, forced obedience, execution, creating dramatic irony and sustained tension. Climactic chaos. The execution scene epitomizes emotional extremes. Inhisar's terror and defiance collide with the crowd's fanaticism, transforming legal punishment into a catastrophic riot and national crisis. Summary insight. Emotional states act as catalysts, shaping crowd behavior from admiration to rage and amplifying narrative tension through escalating stakes, moral conflict, and unpredictable violence. This interplay turns private struggles into public spectacles, propelling the story toward explosive climaxes and unresolved suspense. Excerpts from the novel. On the next day, the village chief swore to God and the collective divorce of his 4 wives to spend an extra day in his hospitality. The fugitives, not knowing where to go next, willingly accepted the invitation. So, the chief of the village Dalesa and some rich male villagers slaughtered 3 cows, 4 lambs, 2 calves, and a camel to celebrate the pleasant surprise visit of the honorable guests. Therefore, the next day was spent eating, praying, and blessing the villagers. Then the 3 guests inquired of their generous host whether the local newspapers of Gedaref city had been delivered to the village. He told them they would come at 8 p.m. on the only bus coming from town. The 3 outlaws on the run from justice eagerly awaited the arrival of the bus and the daily newspapers. During the evening prayer, the virtuous imam's mind is preoccupied with dark thoughts about his dear friend, Syed Osman Al-Taib. What did the local newspapers write about his accusation? What happened to his dear friend in police custody? Maulana has heard many horror stories of suspects being tortured by ruthless police interrogators. Some people have experienced their bodies being burned, some had their nails pulled out, and some had to walk barefoot on hot tins. The Imam concluded that it would be a painful experience for Mr. Osman Al-Taib, who had never faced such hardships before. The blessed Imam believes that the prison was created to house thieves, murderers, rapists, apostates, atheists, feminists, adulterers, adulteresses, gays, lesbians, Sudanese prostitutes, Abyssinian whores, and not for the greats and nobles like Mr. Osman Al-Taib. There is no doubt that the 6th criminal, the magician Omar, will feel at home in prison when he meets his like-minded evil friends. But the rich business tycoon Mr. Osman Al-Taib will be like a fish out of water. When Maulana's troubled mind had somehow managed to finish his evening sermon, he avoided delaying hand-kissing from the gullible villagers and rushed with his wicked friends to their assigned room. The first question they asked was whether the local newspapers had arrived. Someone promised them that he would go and find out if the bus had arrived. It took the messenger nearly half an hour before he returned with the 2 local newspapers in his hands. When he appeared at the door, the virtuous Maulana and Syed Majub Al-Hilali rushed in and snatched the newspapers from his hands. Hajj Muhammad, who could not read or write because he is illiterate and never been to school in all his life, demanded that newspapers be read aloud for him. His demand was granted, and the first newspaper was recited aloud by Maulana Sheikh Marzouk. In the name of God, the most gracious, the most merciful, and prayers and peace be upon our beloved Prophet Muhammad. This opening statement is not part of the newspaper article, but was added by the blessed Imam. The involvement of Police Inspector Hussein Hassan Hassanain and the wealthy man, Mr. Osman Al-Taib, in the crime of kidnapping and rape committed against the innocent girl, Mona Salah el-Din. Yesterday, 2 young men approached the newspaper and reported the lair of the mysterious 6th criminal who is known as the magician. One of the young men revealed his identity as the same good citizen who directed the police to the brothel and tavern where the heinous crime was committed against the innocent girl. He showed the newspaper 2 confession papers written and signed by the charming, mysterious criminal. In the first paper, the criminal gave full details of his involvement in the heinous crime. In the second paper, he confessed to being arrested by Police Inspector Hussein, but was released. His son-in-law, the richest man in the city, Mr. Osman Al-Taib, has bribed the police inspector in charge of the crime with a huge amount of money. Later, Inspector Hussein arrested one of the men of Al-Wash gang, whose name was Shakash Wad Al-Haram, and charged him with the crime of the magician because he wanted to cover up his involvement in bribery. The magician's real name is Omar Ibrahim Mustafa Jabir. Al-Syed Osman Al-Taib and the magician Omar were held in pretrial detention for further interrogation. But the police refused to reveal any information about the bribed Inspector Hussein. When Maulana finished reading, the faces of his 2 friends showed faint smiles. Hajj Muhammad is the first to comment on the news. Nothing was said about us. Maulana said, before you jump to a hasty conclusion, let's hear what the other newspaper article said. And when Mr. Majub Al-Hilali saw Hajj Muhammad's face turning to him for affirmation or denial, he began to read the other newspaper. Police Inspector Hussein Hassan Hassanain and the wealthy businessman Mr. Osman Al-Taib were accused of the heinous crime of rape that was committed against the innocent girl. The good citizen who still concealed his identity somehow knew the whereabouts of the mysterious magician criminal. So, he informed the police Inspector Hussein about it. However, Inspector Hussein turned the tables on the good citizen and accused him of trying to implicate an innocent person in the crime. Yet the good citizen did not give up. He went to the newspaper and reported the matter. On the advice of one of our journalists, the good citizen went and met the innocent girl. Then both of them approached a nearby police station and filed their complaints. With the help of a police sergeant named Muhammad Abdul Nabi and his brave policemen, the magician and Mr. Osman Al-Taib were arrested yesterday afternoon. The magician admitted that he was released in exchange for a large bribe paid by his sister's husband, Mr. Osman Al-Taib, to the police inspector, Hussein. The police refused to disclose more information about Inspector Hussein. More details will be revealed tomorrow by Inspector Yassin, who has been appointed to follow up on the investigation. Hajj Muhammad said happily, "I believe that our good friend, Mr. Osman Al-Taib, tried to implicate us in the crime because he wanted us to stand with him and fight those evil boys who are trying to snatch his new underage bride from him." Maulana said, "You can't be sure of your assumption. We have to wait and see what the newspapers reveal tomorrow." Mr. Majub Al-Hilali said that it is wise for us that we should spend a few days before we return to our city. Not me. I can't stay another day in this boring village. There are no pretty girls here. Every villager is old and insane. The women are covered from head to toe like black ghosts. I would like to go back to town tomorrow. My black magic work will stop without me. Maulana said, "It is up to you. Hajj Muhammad, it is better for you to remain concealed until the dust settles and the whole matter is over. I was told that the bus that brought the newspapers would leave for town at 5:30 in the morning. I'm leaving tomorrow morning on that bus." Maulana said, "It is at your peril that you go back." Hajj Muhammad said, "I've decided to return and trust in God and His messenger to protect me." The two newspaper articles shown to the two fugitives, Maulana Majub Al-Hilali in Dalisa village, deliver shocking and humiliating revelations about Hajj Muhammad. First article, it exposes their friend, Hajj Muhammad, in a scandalous situation. The front page displays him completely naked with a teenage girl, also partially naked, in what is described as an act of immorality. The report states that more than 50 witnesses saw him committing a serious crime of rape with a 16-year-old girl in his house. The police, led by Inspector Yassin, arrested him, and the crime was classified as a grave offense. This revelation terrifies the fugitives, as it destroys the reputation of their ally and implicates him in a heinous act. Second article. It further confirms the disgrace by portraying the fugitives themselves as crooks and rapists. The village chief, enraged by what he read, throws the newspapers at them and orders them to leave the holy ground of Dalisa immediately. The fugitives fear severe punishment, stoning or beheading, but instead, they are banished from the village under threat of hanging if they disobey. In short, the newspapers reveal sexual scandal, criminal charges, and moral collapse, turning the fugitives' world upside down and forcing them into exile. Here's an outline of the events that occur after the fugitives see the newspapers. 1. Delivery of newspapers. A messenger brings newspapers, but hands them to the village chief instead of the guests. The imam opens the first page, and his expression changes from friendly to hostile. 2. Imam's reaction. He reads silently, trembling and sweating as if in a steam bath. The fugitives panic, fearing exposure for kidnapping and bribery. 3. Shocking revelation. The newspapers contain scandalous images of their associate, Hajj Muhammad, caught committing a heinous crime, rape of a minor. The fugitives are horrified and discard the newspapers like they were infected. 4. Fear of punishment. They expect severe punishment, stoning or beheading, but the chief opts for banishment. The chief orders them to leave the village immediately, threatening hanging or decapitation if they disobey. Here's a description of Hajj Muhammad's bus trip from Dalisa village to his house in Gadaref city, based on the text. After fleeing on foot to Dalisa with 2 criminal companions, the imam of the largest mosque and a politician, Hajj Muhammad eventually returned alone to Gadaref. His journey was marked by determination to reach home the same day, regardless of danger or discomfort. He boarded a bus that carried him through a long, rough route. Initially, the ride was uneventful, but as the bus left the smooth highway and entered the rugged roads of Gedaref, violent jerking and shaking woke the passengers from their slumber. The atmosphere turned tense. The assistant quarreled with several passengers, throwing their bags off the bus carelessly, which led to curses directed at the driver, the assistant, and even the authorities. Despite these troubles, Hajj Muhammad remained patient and focused on his goal. At 7:30 a.m., the bus finally reached its destination. From the station, he took a taxi to his home in Gedaref. Once there, he resumed his clean business, instructing his workers to inform visitors that operations would restart at 9:30 a.m. that same day. This swift transition from a perilous journey to business as usual underscores his resilience and single-mindedness. The journey bus. The bus shuddered as it pulled away from the station, its engine humming like a distant storm. The scent of diesel mingled with the faint aroma of coffee from a fellow passenger's flask. Outside, frost clung stubbornly to the windows, blurring the view into a watercolor of gray skies and skeletal trees. Inside, the seats were worn but warm, their fabric rough against my fingertips. A low murmur of conversation drifted through the aisle, punctuated by the occasional hiss of the brakes. I could feel the rhythmic sway of the bus beneath me, a gentle rocking that matched the soft thrum of tires on tarmac. As we wound through narrow streets, the world outside seemed alive with detail, the crunch of tires over scattered gravel, the sharp glint of sunlight bouncing off icy puddles, the distant bark of a dog carried on the wind. Each turn revealed a new vignette, a child tugging at a parent's hand, a shopkeeper sweeping dust from the doorway, the faint curl of smoke rising from chimneys like whispered secrets. The air inside grew warmer as the journey stretched on, tinged with the mingled scents of wool coats and damp scarves. My breath fogged the glass as I leaned closer, tracing the blurred outlines of hills in the distance, their slopes softened by a quilt of winter mist. Time seemed to slow, every sound and sensation weaving together into a tapestry of motion and stillness. Hajj Muhammad's thoughts during the bus ride reveal a stark and almost grotesque comparison between village women and city girls. Village women, he sees them as completely shrouded in black abayas and veils, describing them in a highly negative and dehumanizing way. To him, they resemble coffin-like creatures or female ghosts who appear lifeless and devoid of charm. He even imagines that these women might have been born fully clothed in these garments and concludes that they would not need burial clothes when they die because they already look like corpses. This imagery underscores his perception of village women as unattractive, overly conservative, and stripped of individuality. City girls, in contrast, his mind shifts to the urban women who visit his house daily. He recalls them wearing trendy, revealing clothes that display their legs, thighs, hips, arms, shoulders, hair, and even breasts. These women represent beauty, modernity, and sensuality in his eyes, standing in complete opposition to the ugly and ghost-like village women. This comparison highlights Hajj Muhammad's internalized bias and obsession with physical appearance, equating urban fashion and exposure with desirability while mocking rural modesty as oppressive and unattractive. Excerpts from the novel. During the unhappy and difficult journey, the sorcerer's mind was occupied with thousands of thoughts. He began to compare the females he saw in the village to the visiting young women who came every day to his house. He had seen village girls covering their bodies from head to toe in black abayas and ugly veils. In the village girl, he could see nothing but a coffin-like creature inside a coffin. Each village girl was a female ghost who walked and talked like a zombie inside an ugly cascade. Hajj Muhammad wondered if the girls of the village had emerged from their mothers' wombs fully clothed in those hideous coffin-like clothes. In fact, he concluded that all of them will not need burial clothes when they die. The way the village girl got into the world of the living, she also had to go to the land of the dead. Hajj Muhammad knew that if he took one of the village girls by her feet, lifted her upside down, and then shook her well, he would not see any of her inner charms, such as her breasts and their nipples, thighs, hips, buttocks, underwear, and cunt. Then the pilgrim's mind ignored the ugly appearances of the village girls and began to remember the city's beauties who crowded into his house every day. Most female visitors like to wear trendy clothes that reveal their legs, thighs, hips, arms, shoulders, lips, cheeks, hair, and breasts. Sometimes even their underwear can be seen by him, especially when they get scared when they suddenly see the terrifying demonic man named Mr. Daldoom standing in front of their beautiful eyes. This is the happiest time of the notorious womanizer. The happiest time for him is when a frightened visitor falls on her back and reveals her underwear, or takes refuge in his lap and embraces him. Therefore, the kind-hearted Hajj Muhammad misses the company of those beautiful and sexy teenagers. His loving and tender heart longs for fears and tears, and his generous hands miss the soft cheeks of a teenage girl. Therefore, the pilgrim decided to reach his home on the same day, no matter how dangerous or unhappy the journey. With this determination, the great magician, Hajj Muhammad, sat patiently for the remainder of the unhappy journey. At 7:30 a.m. the bus reached its final destination. Then the mighty witch doctor took a taxi from the bus station to his home. At home, he inquired of his workers about work. He was told that many girls had come to see him on those 2 days and had returned disappointed. He was also told that some of those girls had promised to come today. When you hear this thrilling promise, Hajj Muhammad told his workers to announce to his female visitors that his clean business would resume at 9:30 a.m. on the same day. Here's a summary of the symbolic meaning behind the contrast and what it reveals about gender, culture, and morality in the verdict of obedience against the Muslim wife. 1. Gender. Firdas versus Intisar. The novel contrasts coerced obedience, Firdas, with defiant resistance, Intisar. Firdas is forced back to her husband under a verdict of obedience, symbolizing the tragic cost of submission, loss of agency, identity, and dignity. Intisar, by resisting patriarchal dictates, becomes a transformative symbol of resilience and selfhood, even at great personal risk. This contrast dramatizes the stakes of obedience versus resistance in a patriarchal system. Veil and burqa. These garments are depicted as coffins or ghostly attire, symbolizing enforced invisibility and the erasure of female subjectivity. They embody how gender norms strip women of individuality and freedom. 2. Culture. House of Obedience. This institution is a central symbol of cultural captivity. It literalizes marriage as imprisonment and reflects how law, religion, and custom collude to control women. The house stands for systemic oppression masked as tradition and morality. Courtrooms and trials. These spaces symbolize the weaponization of law to perpetuate injustice. They become theaters where patriarchal authority is sacralized and women's voices silenced. Journey and exile. Flight from Sudan to Ethiopia and Canada symbolizes transformation and rebirth, a cultural rupture that opens possibilities for dignity and freedom. 3. Morality. Sacralization of patriarchy. Religious doctrine is shown as a tool to legitimize misogyny, embedding gender hierarchy in law and social norms. Honor culture and virginity control are portrayed as moral veneers for systemic violence. Contrast of moral codes. The narrative critiques how morality is distorted to enforce obedience, framing submission as virtue and resistance as sin. Intisar's defiance exposes this hypocrisy, suggesting that true morality lies in justice and compassion, not coercion. Core symbolic contrast. The novel stages a clash between oppressive laws and human compassion, between patriarchal control and the yearning for liberty. This duality is not just thematic, it is a moral indictment of systems that claim divine legitimacy while crushing women's autonomy. Excerpts about the trip of the mighty witch doctor. Before leaving, the clean businessman had attended the dawn prayer in the mosque. After praying, he obtained permission from the village chief. Many young people and old people came to the bus station to see off the famous witch doctor. He spoke to them kindly with his lips, but his heart hated and despised them. They are not the type he likes to talk to or spend another day with them. Despite this, the naive villagers kissed his hands and hugged him tightly. Some of them gave him a lot of money. They all shed hot tears as the famous black magic doctor boarded the bus. The escaped criminals, Maulana Sheikh Marzouk and Syed Majub al-Hilali, wished a happy journey and God's protection for their evil friend, Hajj Muhammad. Thus, the greatest of all the greats of the city of Gedaref decided to take a great risk and return to his clean work. He and two fat women took their seats near the driver. Those front seats are the best places to sit. Other passengers are stuffed like sardines in cans in the back seats. The bus is authorized for 50 passengers sitting in seats and 20 passengers standing on their feet, but on that day the number reached 100. Besides them, there are their livestock and possessions such as sheep and goats, chairs and tables, sticks, bags, chickens, and children. It is an excruciating hour-and-a-half trip with many other hazards. The road is bad, so all the passengers will be bumping up and down and sideways all the way. At 5:40 a.m. the dangerous journey began. 10 minutes later of driving, the bus left the village road and entered the gravel highway. So, the shaking and shiver began. Combined with this instability, the bus's tires released massive dust, burying every passenger under a hurricane of dust. It's a bumpy gravel road, and after another 10 minutes of driving, all the passengers and their animals and birds and bags and children are starting to look like creatures that had been buried under the sand and then exhumed. The bus began to climb hills, descend into valleys, cross streams, and sometimes travel under thick, thorny bushes. Those passengers sitting by the windows had their clothes and turbans torn off. Besides all those hardships, the bus stops automatically every now and then due to engine failure. To get the driver to start it again, passengers needed 10 minutes of being pushed from behind to restart the slow beast. In this way, the bus somehow managed to cover half the distance and stopped for a 15-minute break. By then, the passengers were suffering from many kinds of diseases. Some started vomiting, some complained of severe headaches, some felt dizzy, and others felt very weak and tired. All passengers disembarked to stretch their legs and relieve themselves, except for the clean businessman. He did not suffer as the other passengers suffered because of his good health and because he had the best seat. His heart longs for beautiful teenage tears. He hadn't touched the soft cheeks of a hot girl in 44 hours, and that was a long time for him. Moreover, remembered the sexy and hot girl Siham and her attractive promise. Siham is a cover-up name that Farida Ibrahim Mustafa Jabir chose to hide her identity. The pilgrim is afraid that she will come in his absence and not find him. He thinks he fell in love with her at first sight, and the hot girl also fell in love with him. So, all the hardships of the unhappy journey did not shake or weaken him. He resolved to get home by all means and open his private room to his beautiful female visitors. The visit of the brave Virgin of Paradise to the notorious womanizer. Nada and her blind father visit Hajj Muhammad because they are seeking help from him, who is portrayed as a powerful witch doctor and influential figure in the city. The text explains that they arrive at his residence hoping for assistance, as Hajj Muhammad is known for offering solutions to people's problems, though his methods are dubious and exploitative. Nada's issue is tied to her father, which is why she cannot meet Hajj Muhammad alone. Initially, Hajj Muhammad hesitates to allow them in together because he fears honor-related retaliation if a father or brother accompanies a girl. However, upon learning that the father is blind, he agrees to let them both enter. Excerpts from the text. At 9:30 in the morning, the notorious womanizer was lying on his big mattress and soft music started to play. That very day, the mighty witch doctor decided to add a few more things to his room. He told one of his workers to bring the incense burner and fill it with musk. When the incense burner was brought and its white smoke and sweet fragrance spread and filled the entire private room with its scent of musk, the pilgrim's spirit rose. And soon he forgot his two friends whom he had left in the village Dalesa and became indifferent to their problems. He even completely forgot about his imprisoned friend, the rich business tycoon. He wants to enjoy his life and doesn't care if they all go to jail or get killed by their enemies or the police or even fall into hell and burn for eternity and beyond. Then he ordered his maid to choose the youngest and most beautiful girl from among the female visitors and invite her to him. The assistant went to the waiting room and came back with the news that a girl with the description of the witch doctor had been found, but she came with her blind father. Hajj Muhammad ordered his female assistant to bring the girl alone and tell the blind father to sit in the waiting room with other guests. The hostess went and came back frustrated again because the girl's problem is related to her blind father and therefore she cannot come alone. The womanizer does not like having a pretty teenage girl in his private room with her father. He does not mind a mother or a sister, but he is afraid of a girl coming with her father or brother because of the fear of being slain in honor killing if he touches their daughter or sister in front of them. However, when he understood that the father was blind, he agreed to let them in together. After a few seconds, the door to the private room opened from the outside. The first thing that the eyes of the compassionate man see is the big buttocks of a teenage girl. This exciting sight is enough to make Hajj Muhammad's heart jump out of his chest and reach his mouth. His eyes opened wide. The girl is wearing a tight short skirt and a blouse. She had been forced to remove her headscarf and abaya inside the waiting room. She was told that the man of clean business does not like dealing with veiled princesses. Now the Hajj can see her hips as if they were half naked. Then in one motion, the scene changed. Now the womanizer can see the thighs, legs, waist, chest, and hair of the sexy girl. She is now like a big S letter. Her chest rose high with large breasts that looked like pomegranates hidden behind her bra. Her hips and thighs are slightly larger than average. Her long black hair falls loosely at her back. Her golden arms are fully revealed up to the shoulders. Her hands carefully hold the walking cane of her blind father, who leans and walks with it. Then the sweet girl began to gradually retreat and return towards Hajj Muhammad. Until now, the witch doctor cannot see the girl's face, but what he actually saw is enough to captivate his heart and arouse his lust intensely. His erect penis stood like a cannon of Ramadan above a tank inside his white jilbab. The girl continued to back very slowly while holding her father's hand and his walking stick. Hajj Muhammad's eyes focus on the big buttocks of the girl, who approaches him step by step. The girl with a big ass set fire to the clean heart of the notorious womanizer. Big and sexy buttocks are getting closer to him 1 inch after the other. With every step the girl takes, her big buttocks move up and down. The lustful Hajj was tempted to stand up and touch those sexy buttocks and make the girl sit on his lap. Somehow the clean businessman controlled himself and waited to see her face. Her father's blind eyes are covered by large, dark black glasses. The father looks like the fearsome Lucifer, and his daughter looks like a heavenly virgin who descended from heaven to earth. Finally, the beautiful maiden was able to help her father to sit somewhere in the room and then hurried and fell at the feet of Hajj Muhammad and began kissing them with her lips. The Hajj is dying to see her face. So, he extended his merciful hands forward and touched the girl's cheeks. When his hands felt her soft cheeks, the pilgrim felt that a current is passing from the girl's face to his hands and spreading like fire all over his body. Now the lustful healer is aroused to the maximum limit. Slowly and romantically, Hajj Muhammad's hands raised the girl's face. When his eyes saw her beautiful face, his heart turned away from his body and lost his self-control. And in a moment of ecstasy, he kissed the girl completely in the lips. The girl quickly pulled her lips back. However, his hands remained stuck to her cheeks. He continued to look at the girl's incomparably beautiful face. Her beauty exceeds his expectations. From the time he began his black magic work, he had never seen such wonderful and dazzling beauty. Her eyes are large and surrounded by crescent-shaped eyebrows. Her mouth is small and decorated with pretty lips that look like a pair of slices of pineapples. Her cheeks are a pair of apples. Her neck is long and decorated with a gold chain. The chain carries a small plane. The golden plane lands between her breasts. Her breasts are round and slightly larger than average. They're like 2 big pomegranates. They can be seen completely through her collar except for their nipples. Hajj Muhammad is tempted to touch the human aerodrome on which the plane lands. Her fully exposed shoulders created a magnetic force in the witch doctor's hands. Many times, He deliberately allowed his hands to slip from her sweet cheeks to her shoulders, which shine like the color of a mango. The girl again fell to his feet and kissed them. During her downfall, she finds it exceedingly difficult to hide her inner charm from his eyes. If the womanizer reaches out and lifts her short dress by an inch, he will see her small red underwear. The beautiful girl allowed the sorcerer to touch her cheeks, lips, hair, shoulders, and arms. She even let him caress her hands. He tried several times to touch other sensitive areas such as her boobs and ass, but she stopped him. When she realized he was intoxicated with an uncontrollable sexual desire, she stopped kissing his feet and began to speak. The lovely damsel said in a girlish voice, "My father and I are at your mercy." Although she looks like a 16-year-old, her voice is like that of a 6-year-old girl. "Even me too at your mercy, but don't bother about it now," says Hajj Muhammad. "Tell me what your problem is." "My father was deceived by my uncle and my cousin had deceived me." "What kind of fraud and deception?" "One is financial and the other is sexual." "Can you explain your problem in detail?" "My uncle and father inherited their deceased father's money and property. Instead of dividing the inheritance between them, they decided to stay together in partnership. My father lost his wife and his sight 12 years ago in a car accident. From that time on, my uncle started cheating on my father at work. He took advantage of my father's blindness and made him sign many financial documents. In this way, he was able to transfer all money and property to his name. When my father decided to write some of his possessions in my name, he discovered that there was nothing left in his name. Even the house we were staying in passed on to my uncle's name. My father got angry and accused my uncle of betraying him. My uncle claimed that he spent all my father's money on his medical treatment and my education. We took the matter to court and filed a lawsuit against my uncle. Unfortunately, we lost the case. My corrupt uncle had used his money, so he bribed the judge and jurymen and was acquitted. After that, we were kicked out of our house and into the streets. For some time, we were homeless and without money. However, a dear friend of my father took us to his house and gave us a small room to live in temporarily. Nada and her blind father faced a deeply distressing situation that drove them to seek help from Hajj Muhammad. The core problems were unlawful pregnancy. Nada was pregnant outside of an Islamic halal marriage, which placed her in grave danger under Sharia law. If discovered, she risked being reported to the police, condemned as an adulterer, and sentenced to stoning. Social and legal consequences. In their Muslim society, raising an illegitimate child was impossible. Even if no one reported her, societal norms and religious laws meant she could not keep the child without severe repercussions. Limited options and fear of honor killing. Nada feared running away because it would leave her blind father alone and vulnerable. Her only alternative, escaping to another city, would likely force her into prostitution. Staying at home risked exposure and punishment, while fleeing meant moral and physical ruin. Father's helplessness. The blind father, unable to protect or guide his daughter, confided their intractable problem to a friend who advised seeking Hajj Muhammad's help. This desperation stemmed from the father's physical limitations and the family's social isolation. When the beautiful girl finished her father's tragic story, she began to cry. Meanwhile, the kind witch doctor wipes away the tears falling from her soft cheeks. Then the pilgrim looked at the father. He had seen him sitting like a statue of Lord Buddha, without moving or speaking or even tears falling from his blind eyes. Hajj Muhammad wondered how such a stony face could begot such exquisite beauty. He quickly turned his eyes away from the rocky face and brought them back to the beautiful girl's angelic face. "God willing, I will return all the wealth to you and your father, and I will make your uncle run through the streets like the madman Sodor. Now tell me about your sexual problem with your cousin." "I'm ashamed to talk about it," said the pretty girl, still crying. "Just consider me your best friend, and thus open your heart to me." The girl looked around the room and at Hajj Muhammad to make sure that there was no one else but him, her blind father, and her. The sorcerer shook his head and hands to assure the girl that there was no one but the three of them. "I have been in love with my cousin since childhood. We grew up together, played together, slept together, ate together, and studied together. We were like twins. Our souls have loved each other since we realized ourselves. My father was pleased with our friendship, and it was the desire of his heart to see us one day become husband and wife. Despite our happy friendship, my uncle was not happy with our love affair. He held me responsible for his son's repeated failures in his exams. He told me several times that his son could have done well in his exams if I had been away from him. My cousin started to believe his father and slowly started to change. Nevertheless, I continued to love him and did everything to make him happy and win back his trust and love. Unfortunately, he took advantage of my blind love for him and cheated on me with another girl, and then raped me when we were alone in the house. He made me pregnant with an illegitimate child without marriage. When his father found out about my illegal pregnancy, he refused to accept the fact that his son was behind this heinous act. Unfortunately, even my cousin sided with his father and claimed he was innocent and said another boy had made me pregnant. After that, father and son kicked us out of our house. Now I am ashamed to confront society with a sex scandal. I have spoiled my father's name and added more grief to his heart. Yet my father still loves and trusts me. After our heartbreaking tragedy, my father revealed our insurmountable problems to one of his close friends. The friend advised him to take his illegally pregnant daughter and go to meet the mighty witch doctor Hajj Muhammad. I'm in a serious dilemma. I don't want to run away from home and leave my blind father alone. Also, if I run away, I have to escape to another city and become a prostitute there. But if I choose to stay, the neighbors will report my unlawful pregnancy to the police because it happened without an Islamic halal marriage. If I give birth to an illegitimate child in jail, the Sharia court will condemn me as an adulterer and then sentence me to stoning. Even if no one reports me to the police, you know that I cannot raise an illegitimate child in a Muslim society. Nada's father's blindness plays a significant role in shaping their vulnerability and the tragic events that follow. Here are the key effects based on the text. 1. Physical dependence and exposure. Because Nada's father cannot see, she must guide and assist him in unfamiliar settings. This dependence places her in close proximity to powerful men like Hajj Muhammad, making her more exposed to danger. Her efforts to help her father sit down inadvertently draw her into a compromising situation where she becomes the focus of predatory attention. 2. Loss of protective authority. Blindness strips the father of his ability to act as a protector. In patriarchal contexts, a father's authority often serves as a shield for daughters. Here, his inability to perceive or intervene leaves Nada defenseless against exploitation. The imbalance of power is stark. While he is physically present, his blindness renders him powerless. 3. Symbolic vulnerability. The narrative uses his blindness as a metaphor for helplessness and moral decay in the surrounding society. His covered eyes and frailty contrast sharply with the predatory behavior of Hajj Muhammad, highlighting how systemic corruption thrives when guardians are incapacitated. 4. Catalyst for tragedy. Their visit, intended to seek justice or assistance, becomes catastrophic because the father cannot detect danger or resist advances. His blindness indirectly facilitates the assault on Nada, underscoring how physical disability intersects with social vulnerability in oppressive environments. Nada's deception by her lover unfolds as a deeply tragic and manipulative episode. According to the text, her lover promised marriage as a way to gain her trust and intimacy. Believing his assurances, Nada allowed him to become physically involved with her, which resulted in an illegitimate pregnancy. After exploiting her vulnerability, he abandoned her. This betrayal left Nada devastated, facing societal shame and fearing being stoned to death by the Sharia court. The narrative even compares her lover to Casanova, highlighting his pattern of seducing women and discarding them without remorse. When the girl finished talking about her sexual problem, she bowed her head in shame and began to cry. Hajj Muhammad also wiped some tears from his face. He looked at the father, but he saw him as before. There were no movements, tears, or words that came out of his mouth. He remained in place like a lifeless statue. He ignored the father again, but despised him this time because he showed no sympathy towards his crying daughter. Then he began to wipe the girl's tears. He enjoyed it so much, but it was the beautiful and sexy girl who stopped crying and said to him, "If you do nothing to help us out of our shame and misery, I will end my life." Hajj Muhammad replied, "I will do whatever you ask me to do. I want you to solve our financial and sexual problems." Hajj Muhammad's heart was filled with the spirit of anger and vengeance, so he raised his hand and shouted loudly, "O Daldum." Then he set his eyes on the girl to see how she would react when she saw the shadow of death unfold before her eyes. He expected her to run to her father, or jump on him and cuddle up to him and sit on his lap, or run to the toilet and lock herself inside, or fall on her back and reveal her underwear, or run from his room. Until now, none of the teenage girls had acted otherwise when they saw the scary monster Daldum suddenly appear before their eyes. However, when the fearsome beast suddenly appeared before the girl's eyes, she did nothing of this. Instead, she looked first at him and then at Hajj Muhammad, smiled at them, and remained calm. The girl's normal reaction stunned Hajj Muhammad, who had never seen nor heard of the ancient stories of the witches and wizards of his ancestors. That the girl remained calm and normal when she saw the bag of darkness appear in the empty air before her. Hajj Muhammad considered the girl's lack of violent reaction a great miracle. He also began to think about the possibility if she was an ordinary human or another demonic manifestation of some kind. Daldum himself was astonished and very afraid. He quickly jumped to the conclusion that the girl herself was another demonic creature that came directly from the world of evil spirits. He might believe her if she claimed that she was his demon among the jinn, or the fairy bride of the Nile River, Al-Jinniya. Nada does not fear Daldum because her reaction symbolizes resistance against the oppressive forces he represents. In the novel, Daldum is portrayed as a grotesque, supernatural enforcer, a bridge between Hajj Muhammad and the world of demons, whose primary role is to instill terror and legitimize the witch doctor's authority. Most female characters panic at his sudden, ominous appearance, seeing him as a demonic threat tied to black magic and patriarchal control. However, Nada, who is actually Mona in disguise, remains calm and defiant. This is significant for two reasons. Symbolic resilience. Her lack of fear marks a turning point in the narrative, foreshadowing cracks in the patriarchal system. Unlike other women who succumb to superstition and intimidation like Badriya, her mother, and Frida, Nada's composure undermines Daldum's power as a tool of fear. Contrast with fatalism. Daldum embodies oppression through fear, but Nada's courage reflects female agency and resistance. Her stance challenges the fatalism imposed by mystical and social forces, reinforcing the theme that fear is a mechanism of control, and rejecting it is an act of liberation. In essence, Nada's attitude is not just personal bravery, it is a thematic statement against manipulation through superstition and fear. In order to clear his doubts, Hajj Muhammad began to inquire about the background of the brave girl. "Have you come to me before?" "No, sir." "Have you been to a witch doctor's house before?" "Not at all." "Has anyone visited my house and then talked to you about me?" "Never." "How did you know about me?" "I told you that a dear friend of my father had told us about you." "What is his name?" "His name is Wad Al-Kapir." "I've never heard of this name before." "I don't think he came to your house, but he probably heard about you. You are more popular and loved in this city than anyone else." Although Hajj Muhammad was not completely satisfied with her answers, he decided to stop his inquiries. His mind told him that the girl and her father had probably dried up from all human feelings because of the tremendous injustice done to them. "My faithful servant, Mr. Daldum, would you please show our sweet princesses the list of revenge?" The scary creature is still puzzled by the brave girl's strange reaction. He also considered her to be an extraordinary human or female creature who came either from the world of evil spirits or from the virgins of heaven who had descended to earth to be the sexual partner for his womanizer master. With this conclusion, he handed the list of revenge to the brave celestial girl. "What am I supposed to do with this black book, Mr. Daldum?" said the Maiden of Heaven, smiling at him. The shadow of death remained very puzzled also by the friendly nature of the brave girl and the respectful way in which she addressed him. Since the day he found himself involved in the evil work of black magic, no young woman had spoken to him with respect. In fact, all the teenage girls who visited Hajj Muhammad hated him and hoped he would disappear or be bound by his master. But for the first time, the terrible-looking magician found a girl who smiled and spoke politely to him. "Can you pick a number at random, please?" For the first time, the fearsome beast spoke as respectfully as his evil mind would allow. The fair virgin of paradise said in a spoiled voice to Mr. Daldoom, still smiling, "If I'm not mistaken, you've given me a blank book. So, should I guess any number and write it here?" "Please, Miss World, don't write anything on the black book. The numbers are already written in it. You have to randomly pick any number between 1 and 13 and tell us." "Well," said the brave girl, smiling, "for your sake, my dear Mr. Daldoom, I choose the number 7. Again, the ugly beast was slightly moved by the sweet girl's friendly nature and her distinguished courage. This time the reason for his astonishment was the perfect way the girl kept pronouncing his strange name. Even the great wizard, Hajj Muhammad, cannot pronounce his name so perfectly. Daldoom's conclusion proved correct, and he then began to view the girl as a spiritual being who manifested herself in a beautiful human form. So, he smiled at the Virgin of Heaven and then said, "The number you have chosen is suicide, not for my sake, but rather the punishment for your uncle. Now can you tell us his full name?" "His name is Hassan Wad Al-Khair." "Hassan Wad Al-Khair number 7, Daldoom shouted very loudly. "Why did you repeat the name after me so loudly, Mr. Daldoom?" "For the spiritual servants to hear it." "Who are the spiritual servants?" "Excuse me, Princess," said Hajj Muhammad, "we usually do not like to tell people anything about our invisible servants, but for your sake I will give you some information. Our servants are invisible evil spirits who help us do our jobs without police interference. For example, your uncle caused great injustice to your father. When your father went to law, the law closed its doors on him. If your father tries to take his rights by force, the law will come after him and punish him. Therefore, he is the loser anyway." Daldoom becomes angry with Nada because she insults him by questioning whether he is a human being or a demon. This remark deeply offends him, and he responds with rage, claiming he is something between a human and an evil spirit, even threatening to prove it. His anger escalates to the point where he moves toward her aggressively, intending to carry out his threat. Hajj Muhammad intervenes, urging Daldoom to control his anger, which prompts Nada to retract her words and beg for forgiveness, eventually calming him down. Daldoom's reaction in the verdict of obedience against the Muslim wife carries deep symbolic weight. Here's the breakdown. 1. Embodiment of fear and superstition. His sudden, ghastly appearance and violent temper are not just personal traits, they symbolize the pervasive fear of the occult within the community. Daldoom is portrayed as a demonic servant of Hajj Muhammad, a figure who bridges the human and supernatural realms. This makes him a living representation of superstition weaponized for control. 2. Intersection of power and manipulation. When Daldoom reacts with rage after being questioned, it underscores how fragile and performative his authority is. His fury is a defense mechanism to maintain dominance, reflecting how patriarchal and mystical systems rely on intimidation rather than reason. His role as the keeper of the Black Book of Curses turns fear into a tangible instrument of oppression. 3. Symbol of institutionalized darkness. Daldoom's oscillation from the shadow of death to a black angel of forgiveness is symbolic of the arbitrary nature of power in corrupt systems. It shows how mercy or violence depends not on justice but on whim, reinforcing the novel's critique of law and religion being twisted into tools of tyranny. 4. Broader thematic significance. Ultimately, Daldoom represents the convergence of superstition and patriarchy, fear of unseen forces used to enforce obedience. Community helplessness. His presence validates Hajj Muhammad's authority, making resistance seem futile. Moral decay. His reaction dramatizes how spiritual rhetoric masks exploitation and abuse. Hajj Muhammad said, "My servants will punish your uncle and return to your father his money and possessions." The police do not see the spiritual servants and do not believe in their existence, and this makes our work safe and easy. Do you see those spiritual servants? Not at all. How do you communicate with them? Through my spiritual leader Daldum. Then the girl looked at Daldum for a while and realized that he didn't look like an ordinary human. She said, "Is this Daldum a human being or a demon?" Mr. Daldum felt much offended and then opened his mouth angrily and exclaimed, "I think I am something between a human being and an evil spirit, or perhaps the devil himself has taken human form, and if you doubt what I claim, I can prove it now." After uttering those obscene words, the specter of death stepped forward towards the culprit and was about to carry out his threat against her. Hajj Muhammad shouted, "Please control your anger, Mr. Daldum," when he saw the black bag about to attack the beautiful girl. His angry words forced the brave girl to retract her daring question and beg him to pardon her. "I'm so sorry, Mr. Daldum. I didn't mean to offend you. I just wanted to clear my doubts. So, I beg your pardon, Mr. Daldum, my dear. Please forgive me, sir. I'm willing to kiss your hands and feet if it will make you forgive me. I am also ready to apologize to you on my knees." Then the Virgin of Heaven fell to her knees and raised her hands, begging the sack of darkness to forgive her. Either he was affected by her tears and pleas, or her many words of apology had touched his heart of stone and turned him from the demon of death into a black angel of forgiveness, or only God knows. Mr. Daldum, the so-called dark angel of love, changed his mind, stepped back, and dropped his fists. Those apologetic words finally calmed the shadow of death and restored a measure of peace to the room. Then Mr. Daldum said, "My dear sister, please choose another number for your cousin." Nada's choice of a number is steeped in symbolic meaning and directly tied to Wahid's destiny. In the ritual described, each number in Daldum's Black Book corresponds to a specific punishment determined by supernatural forces. When Nada selects her number, she unknowingly invokes a sentence that reflects moral judgment within the story's framework. Symbolism of the number. The chosen number is not arbitrary. It signifies a preordained penalty for wrongdoing. Daldum explains that the number itself shows us what kind of punishment a person deserves, reinforcing the idea that fate is numerically coded and beyond human control. This transforms the act of choosing into a symbolic surrender to cosmic justice. Connection to Wahid's fate. By picking the number, Nada seals Wahid's doom. The punishment linked to her choice becomes inevitable, executed by spiritual evil servants who act as instruments of vengeance. Wahid's fate, whether separation, suffering, or death, is portrayed as the consequence of his transgressions, but mediated through Nada's seemingly innocent act. Her decision thus becomes a narrative pivot, a moment where superstition and personal agency collide, illustrating themes of fatalism and moral retribution. In essence, the number operates as a cipher for destiny, binding Wahid to a punishment that underscores the novel's critique of power, superstition, and patriarchal control. Here's a concise synthesis of Daldum's role and symbolism in the verdict of obedience against the Muslim wife. Who is Daldum? Daldum is portrayed as Hajj Muhammad's demonic servant and enforcer, described as a short, black, ogre-like figure with a terrifying presence. His origin is cloaked in mystery and folklore. Characters often interpret him as a jinn, demon, or even the devil, capable of appearing and disappearing at will. Core functions. Scribe and record keeper, maintains the love list, a black book of numbers linked to curses or punishments. Executor of black magic, announces and enforces supernatural punishments, believed to command spirits to carry out acts of vengeance or chaos. Intermediary to the spirit world, connects Hajj Muhammad to the demonic realm, reinforcing the witch doctor's aura of power. Symbolic role. Embodiment of fear and superstition, Daldum personifies the irrational forces underpinning patriarchal control. His rituals dramatize how fear is weaponized to enforce obedience. Intersection of religion and magic highlights the hypocrisy of a society where religious law coexists with witchcraft, both used to oppress women. Instrument of patriarchal violence externalizes the unseen chains binding women, legal, cultural, and mystical. Impact on plot and characters. His pronouncements, like assigning number 9 for separation of lovers, catalyze key conflicts. Characters like Badriya and her mother are terrified by him, which drives compliance with Hajj Muhammad's manipulative rituals. Daldum's ghastly presence amplifies the sense of doom, reinforcing societal belief in occult practices. Broader symbolism. Daldum is not just a character, but a psychological weapon, making Hajj Muhammad's threats tangible and terrifying. He symbolizes the dark, unseen forces, superstition, fear, and manipulation that shape destinies, especially of women trapped in patriarchal systems. Here's a concise summary of Daldum's impact on key characters. Influence on Badriya and her mother. When they seek Hajj Muhammad's help against Intisar, Daldum's sudden appearance terrifies them. His ritualistic role, assigning Intisar a curse number and demanding a personal item, compels them to comply fully. Their fear validates the witch doctor's authority and escalates the conflict into a supernatural vendetta. Impact on Intisar. Daldum's involvement in cursing Intisar, separation of lovers, sets the stage for her tragic life. His presence reinforces the inevitability of magical harm, deepening her sense of doom and isolation. Effect on broader society. Daldum amplifies Hajj Muhammad's power, making occult practices seem real and unavoidable. His grotesque, fearsome image perpetuates societal belief in black magic as a tool for control, especially over women. He becomes a psychological weapon, escalating personal disputes into systemic oppression. Symbolic significance. Daldum represents the intersection of religion and superstition, exposing hypocrisy in a society that uses both law and magic to oppress women. He externalities the invisible chains binding women, legal, cultural, and mystical, through fear-driven rituals. In the text, both Hajj Muhammad and Daldum exhibit strong and complex reactions to Nada's bravery. Daldum's reaction. Initially, Daldum feels deeply offended when Nada questions whether he is human or a demon. His anger flares, and he threatens her violently, portraying himself as something between a human and an evil spirit. However, Nada's courage and calmness astonish him. Instead of reacting with fear, she apologizes and even kneels, which softens his rage. This unexpected bravery and humility lead him to reconsider his stance. Daldum becomes intrigued and fearful, suspecting that Nada might be a supernatural being. Her ability to pronounce his strange name perfectly and her composed manner further convince him of her extraordinary nature. Eventually, he shifts from aggression to admiration, even smiling at her and engaging in dialogue. Hajj Muhammad's reaction. Hajj Muhammad is alarmed when Daldum moves to attack Nada. He intervenes, urging Daldum to control his anger, showing his protective instinct towards the girl. He views Nada's lack of violent reaction as miraculous and begins to wonder if she is an ordinary human or a spiritual manifestation. His tone becomes reassuring, telling Nada not to fear Daldum, and he frames Daldum as dangerous only to enemies, not to her. Hajj Muhammad's response reflects both awe at her courage and a desire to shield her from harm. In essence, Daldum oscillates between rage, fear, and eventual respect, interpreting Nada's bravery as supernatural. Hajj Muhammad admires her courage, sees it as extraordinary, and steps in as a protector while marveling at her composure. Nada's courage plays a pivotal role in exposing Hajj Muhammad and triggering his downfall. Here's how it unfolds based on the text. 1. Courage in the face of assault. When Hajj Muhammad attempts to rape Nada, she refuses to submit. Despite being drugged and in pain, she fights back, screaming loudly for help. Her cries alert her father and draw outsiders, including Shams al-Din, a journalist investigating similar crimes. This act of resistance transforms a private crime into a public scandal, as Shams captures the assault on camera, creating undeniable evidence of Hajj Muhammad's depravity. 2. Turning fear into defiance. Nada's bravery shocks Hajj Muhammad. Instead of reacting with terror to his threats and demonic theatrics, she remains calm and even challenges him verbally. Her refusal to be intimidated undermines his psychological control, which he relies on to dominate victims. This defiance marks the beginning of his loss of power. 3. Chain reaction leading to exposure. Her courage indirectly enables others to act. Her father, revealed as Inspector Yassin, intervenes with a gun and arrests Hajj Muhammad on the spot. Journalistic evidence from Shams al-Din and later a secretly recorded confession by Frida, another brave woman, solidify the case against him. 4. Legal and social consequences. The confession, combined with the footage of the attempted rape, exposes Hajj Muhammad's broader crimes, false marriages, bribery, and manipulation of Sharia law. These revelations dismantle his alliances with influential figures and strip him of the aura of invincibility he cultivated. Ultimately, this evidence becomes central in court, ensuring his conviction and societal disgrace. In essence, Nada's courage breaks the cycle of silence and fear. By resisting and calling for help, she turns a moment of vulnerability into a catalyst for justice, sparking a series of events that topple Hajj Muhammad's corrupt empire. Excerpts from the text. This time, the mighty witch doctor Hajj Muhammad felt very confused and frightened when he heard Dal Doom address one of his female visitors as his sister. For him, everything that day was unusual and unnatural. He saw with his own small red eyes and heard with his big black ears the unbelievable that very morning. I chose number 13 for my ex-boyfriend. What is his name? Mr. Dal Doom asked.
Wahid Hassan Wad Al-Kai.
The scary black creature shouted very loudly. Wahid Hassan Wad Al-Khair number 13. By the way, Hajj Muhammad said to the brave girl, what is your name? My name is Nada Salawat Al-Khair. Nada is a beautiful name. You look like the dew of heaven just as your name means. Thank you, sir, said the pretty girl, smiling. Excuse me, sir, said the sweet princess, Nada. What will Wahid's punishment be? Madness. Your ex-lover Wahid will be mad forever, shouted the witch doctor. Thousands of evil demons will dwell in his body. They'll make him run around the streets and sleep on top of trash dumpsters at night. When people see him, they will run away from him. Even animals would be afraid of him. He will eat rubbish from garbage containers and drink stagnant, filthy water out of the gutter. His body and clothes would smell like a decomposing carcass of an animal. When you see him, you can't recognize him. He will grow his hair, nails, and beard. His clothes will be torn to pieces. He urinates and defecates in his clothes. In the story, Nada asks what punishment will befall her ex-lover Wahid, and the witch doctor replies that Wahid's punishment will be madness. Specifically, he will be possessed by thousands of evil demons, causing him to wander the streets, sleep on rubbish dumpsters, eat garbage, and drink filthy water. His appearance and smell will become so repulsive that even animals will fear him, and Nada herself will not recognize him. As for why Dal Doom says she cannot change it, it is because the punishment is determined by the number Nada chose earlier in a ritual. Dal Doom explains that the number itself dictates the punishment for the wrong committed, and once chosen, it cannot be altered. This rule is presented as part of the mystical process overseen by Dal Doom and the spiritual servants. It is a cruel and inhuman punishment. How can I bear to see my ex-boyfriend in such a miserable state? Nada, we did not choose the punishment, but you chose it. Besides, the number itself shows us what kind of punishment a person deserves for the wrong he has committed against our visitor. Can I change the number? You can't, said Mr. Dal Doom with a serious face. What you have to do now is to bring us something familiar for your uncle and cousin. What is that? An old shoe, a handkerchief, or any piece of clothing that belonged to your uncle or cousin. Why do you want that, Mr. Dal Doom? For our spiritual evil servants to find your uncle and cousin. But this kind of punishment will not solve my problem. What can I do to solve the problem of my illegal pregnancy? Hajj Muhammad said, don't worry about your illegal pregnancy now. When you bring the familiar things, please come back alone. Never bring up your blind father again. I'll give you something to drink. It will lead to the abortion of the illegal fetus from your womb. It will make you sleep for an hour or two in my own room. When you wake up, you'll be a virgin again. Your pussy will be closed just like the day your mother gave birth to you. You will become a virgin like the Horia of Jannat el-Firdaus. How much money do we have to pay you for all your services to us? Don't worry about money now. Whatever amount you paid Bayad when you came, we will accept it, but you will be asked for the full amount when the work is done by my spiritual servants. But when you come to pay the rest of the amount, you must pay 10 times what you gave today. Suppose if we don't get back to you after the work is done, what will you do to get the full amount? My beautiful Princess Nada, sometimes you are cute and naughty and sometimes you talk like a police inspector or detective. You are a very strange girl. I can't understand you. I just want to satisfy my curiosity. If you fail to return to me, then the punishments of your uncle and cousin will be carried out on you and your father by my invisible evil servants. Do you have some examples of people being killed by your wicked servants or made mad by your demons? I have many more, but for your sake I will mention 2 famous examples. The first example is the 4th wife of the wealthy businessman, Mr. Osman al-Taib. Her name was Rasha, and she died during giving birth to her firstborn. She was killed when she was 13 years old. My evil servants made her swallow a lot of medicine pills at night. When morning came, they found her dead and gone forever. The hospital staff informed the police authority of the cause of her death as having committed suicide. The second example is the madman Sador. He is known as a madman, but in reality, he is possessed by my evil spirits. Thousands of them torture him day and night until he dies in the streets like a stray dog. Before he was controlled by those thousands of my demons, he used to be a very handsome teacher in the biggest school in this city. He is a university graduate. But today he is the most dangerous madman in town. Even the mental hospital staff in Khartoum City were afraid to keep him in their health facility. He will remain homeless and wander the streets of the city until he breathes his last like a stray dog infested with rabies. How many demons do you have under your control? They are countless in number. They are more in number than people in this city. I could send thousands of them to everyone in many cities in Sudan, and there would still be a lot of them. How do you catch these demons? I inherited them from my father inherited them from his father, and so on. Don't ask me how my great-grandfather got them, I don't know. Have you ever used humans to do your evil work? Yes, in a limited way only. For example, they make erasers and vaporizers. What are these? They are verses from the Holy Quran written on wooden slates and folded papers. Visitors are supposed to drink the ashtray mihaya, burn the incense bokhara, and smell its smoke. But my evil demons do other dangerous things. Can I join your business in black magic? All this time the lustful witch doctor's hands wandered all over the sexy body of the beautiful Virgin of Paradise Nada. He started with the cheeks and went down to the waist, then one of his hands moved to the big ass of the sexy girl and started caressing it with lust. When the lovely girl remained unaffected or interested, his other hand extended to one of the Virgin's breasts and grabbed it. However, Nada did not refuse. Then his big hands began to caress her breasts. When those sexual touches didn't drive the girl away from the notorious womanizer's hands or drag herself away, the lustful sorcerer decided to make his final move. In the blink of an eye, his right hand grabbed the girl's short dress and wrapped it up to her waist. At the same time, his left hand grabbed her small red underwear and removed it from her private parts. The madman concluded that the girl's father is not only blind but also deaf and dumb. Therefore, he knew and understood that no one would save his lovely daughter from him. Before Nada could do anything, the witch doctor pushed her down and straddled her body. He removed his wolf's hood and exposed his fully erect penis, which is standing like a big rifle ready to fire its bullets on the near target. Then he started by forcibly inserting his large cock inside the sexy girl's small pussy. When Nada realizes that the evil magician has begun to rape her, she overcomes her sleep. She felt his big dick completely inserted inside her small pussy. It gave her a terrible pain in her cunt. As a result, she started screaming for help. Her loud screams not only made her father wake up from his slumber, but also brought many visitors into the unclean businessman's private room. Among the visitors is Shams al-Din. He is the same famous journalist who is covering the recent kidnapping and rape of the first innocent girl, Mona Salah el-Din. Once inside, he turns on his camera and begins filming the still-in-progress rape crime. The notorious womanizer Hajj Muhammad was completely possessed by demonic lust, and nothing could ease his sexual madness except the rape of the lovely girl in front of her father. While he was involved in the rape, he felt someone's strong hand hit him on the head. He looked up to see who hit him. He saw the father's face with a gun in his hand. His dark glasses no longer covered his eyes. Instead, his eyes are filled with anger and determination. Then the angry father shouted at the rapist, "Any movement, I will shoot you in the head." "Who are you?" shouted Hajj Muhammad. The father said, "I am the police inspector Yasin." "You are under arrest." "You are under arrest for rape and misleading," shouted Inspector Yasin. The evil rapist was amazed and frightened when he discovered that his private room was full of his visitors and workers. More than 50 people watched him rape the innocent girl. When the evil witch doctor was forced to his feet, everyone saw his penis fully erect and standing like the cannon of Ramadan. Even his victim became half naked, and her dress was rolled up to her waist, and she was without her underwear. Everybody saw her pussy was covered with black pubic hair. The media reporter Shams al-Din took many pictures of the rape. In fact, the famous journalist was planted by Police Inspector Yasin among the visitors in order to meet some of them and cover up the arrest of the great fraudster, the witch doctor Hajj Muhammad. They came ready to arrest him for deceiving people and stealing their money, but the sex freak gave them more than they came for. He raped the first innocent girl in front of the Police Inspector Yasin. His evil deed was witnessed by more than 50 people. On that very morning, the mastermind of the two evil marriage plots, Hajj Muhammad, was arrested along with his workers. After the rapist and impostor were tied up, Inspector Yasin chased Daldoom, who looked very terrifying and dangerous. The policeman who came in plain clothes and also sat in the waiting room along with Inspector Yasin searched the whole house inside and out, but they could not find Daldoom. It was as if the black shadow of darkness had transformed itself into a cloud of smoke, rose into the air, and disappeared from the land of mortals forever. Here's a stage play-style reconstruction of the moment when Nada's courage exposes Hajj Muhammad, written with dialogue, cues, and emotional beats so you can feel the confrontation unfold viscerally. Dramatic scene: the exposure of Hajj Muhammad. Setting: a crowded courtyard in Gedaref, dusk. Lanterns flicker against the walls of the Grand Mosque. Villagers gather, whispers ripple through the crowd. At the center, Hajj Muhammad stands tall, cloaked in authority. Nada steps forward, her voice trembling but resolute. Stage directions. Lighting: a single harsh lantern illuminates Hajj Muhammad, casting long shadows. As Nada speaks, the light shifts to her, symbolizing truth breaking through darkness. Sound: murmurs of the crowd swell and fade. A distant drumbeat underscores tension. Emotion: fear grips the audience, but anticipation builds as Nada raises her voice. Dialogue: Nada, firm, voice rising, you preach obedience, Hajj Muhammad, yet your hands are stained with betrayal. You hide behind the veil of piety, but I have seen the truth. You exploit the law, not to protect faith, but to enslave women. Crowd, murmuring, shocked, she dares to speak. Hajj Muhammad, angrily, trying to silence her, silence, girl. You know nothing of the law. You defy God himself by standing against me. Nada, stepping closer, unwavering, no, I defy you. God is not cruelty. God is not chains. You twist his words to serve your power. Tonight, I will not be silent. Tonight, everyone will know. Emotional beat. Nada's voice cracks with emotion, but she steadies herself. The crowd leans in, emboldened by her defiance. Hajj Muhammad falters, his authority slipping as whispers turn into shouts. Villager 1, calling out, "Is it true, Hajj Muhammad? Did you force marriages? Did you imprison the innocent?" Villager 2, angrily, "We trusted you. You betrayed us." Hajj Muhammad, desperate, voice breaking, lies. All lies. She is just a girl. Nada, cutting him off, voice ringing like a bell, "A girl, yes. But a girl unafraid. And that is enough to bring you down." Stage directions. The lantern flickers, then steadies on Nada. Hajj Muhammad's shadow shrinks, swallowed by the crowd's rising anger. The drumbeat stops, silence, heavy and final. Closing beat. Crowd, chanting unified justice. 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 Narrator's voice, soft, reflective, and so, with the courage of one brave girl, the fortress of fear crumbled. Hajj Muhammad's downfall was not wrought by swords or chains, but by truth spoken aloud. This reconstruction shows how Nada's courage transforms the atmosphere, from fear to collective defiance, from silence to justice. Here's a clear breakdown of the strategic reasons behind the Friends' decision to send Mona disguised as Nada, accompanied by her blind father, to entice Hajj Muhammad. Narrative strategy. Deception as resistance. The Friends know Hajj Muhammad is obsessed with his lust for teen girls. By sending the first innocent girl, Mona, they exploit his fixation and lure him into a trap of his own making. Blind father as cover. The presence of the blind father adds credibility to the disguise. His inability to see ensures he cannot betray the ruse, while his presence reassures Hajj Muhammad that this is truly Nada's family. Tactical motives. Enticement through familiarity. Hajj Muhammad is more likely to trust and approach Nada if she appears with her blind father, reinforcing the illusion and lowering his guard. Creating evidence of corruption. The scheme is designed to draw Hajj Muhammad into compromising actions, which can then be revealed publicly to dismantle his authority. Symbolic meaning. Solidarity among women. Mona's willingness to risk herself demonstrates the collective courage of women resisting patriarchal oppression. It's not just one voice, it's a chorus of defiance. Turning obedience against him, Hajj Muhammad demands obedience from women, but here obedience is weaponized. Mona obeys the plan to deceive him, flipping his own tactics back on him. Key takeaway. The Friends' decision is both practical and symbolic. By sending Mona, pretending to be Nada, she manipulates Hajj Muhammad's arrogance and sets the stage for his exposure and downfall. It shows how resistance often requires cunning, solidarity, and the willingness to risk deception to reveal truth. When Inspector Yassin arrests Hajj Muhammad, the police also attempt to capture Daldum, who is portrayed as a terrifying and almost supernatural figure. Despite their efforts, Daldum escapes dramatically. The officers search the entire house inside and out, but he cannot be found. The text describes his disappearance as if the black shadow of darkness had transformed itself into a cloud of smoke, rose into the air, and disappeared from the land of the mortals forever. This imagery reinforces Daldum's role as a demonic or otherworldly servant, making his vanishing seem mystical rather than a simple getaway. Daldum's escape matters because it symbolizes the fragility of justice and the persistence of systemic corruption in the narrative. When the ringleader of the kidnappers and rapists manages to flee, it undermines the sense of closure and accountability that the authorities and the victims desperately seek. The text makes clear that Inspector Hussein himself admits their victory would not be considered a real victory for the public and the authority of the police unless the fleeing enemy chief is arrested. This failure highlights several key themes. 1. Erosion of justice. His escape shows how even after dramatic raids and arrests, the most powerful figures often evade punishment. This reflects the novel's critique of a legal system that is easily manipulated by wealth, influence, and fear. 2. Persistence of patriarchal power. Daldum is not just a criminal. He represents entrenched patriarchal and violent structures. His survival means those structures remain intact, continuing to threaten women and perpetuate cycles of abuse. 3. Narrative tension and symbolism. The inability to capture Daldum keeps the story's tension alive. It symbolizes the long arms of oppression, how authority and violence can reach beyond the immediate moment, even after apparent victories. 4. Public perception. The text stresses that the public views justice as incomplete without Daldum's capture. This failure damages institutional credibility and reinforces the theme of systemic failure. In short, Daldum's escape is not a mere plot twist. It is a thematic device that amplifies the novel's indictment of corruption, gendered violence, and the illusion of justice. Here's a summary of the themes linked to Daldum's escape based on the text. 1. Superstition and social control. Daldum is portrayed as a demonic servant and a supernatural figure tied to Hajj Muhammad. His presence and eventual escape symbolize the manipulation of fear and superstition as tools of control. The narrative uses Daldum to expose how irrational beliefs are weaponized to maintain patriarchal dominance and intimidate women into submission. 2. Manipulation and corruption. Daldum's role is not merely mystical. It underscores systemic corruption. His escape reflects the failure of justice and the complicity of religious and legal authorities who exploit myths and spiritual terror for personal gain. This theme connects to the broader critique of a society where law and faith are twisted to serve power rather than protect the vulnerable. 3. Fear as a weapon. The character embodies fear as an instrument of oppression. His escape intensifies the atmosphere of dread, reinforcing how fear, whether through physical violence or supernatural threats, becomes a mechanism to silence resistance and enforce obedience. 4. Resistance and fragile autonomy. While Daldum's escape heightens danger, it also mirrors the fragile acts of resistance by characters like Intisar and Firdaus. Their struggle against patriarchal systems parallels the chaos unleashed by Daldum, suggesting that breaking oppressive structures often comes with unpredictable consequences. 5. Symbolism of unseen forces. Daldum symbolizes the unseen, irrational forces shaping destinies, forces that thrive in cultures steeped in patriarchal and religious absolutism. His escape serves as a metaphor for the uncontrollable nature of these forces once unleashed, reflecting the tension between tradition and modernity. Does Daldum reappears again in the novel? Yes, Daldum does reappear later in the novel. He is not a one-time character. Rather, he plays a recurring and significant role as Hajj Muhammad's demonic servant and enforcer. Daldum is described as a short, black, ogre-like or ghoul-like figure who materializes during rituals and moments of black magic. His duties include acting as the witch doctor's intermediary with the spirit world. He is referred to as the leader of my Satanists and is believed to connect Hajj Muhammad to demons. Recording names and punishments in the Black Book. When clients seek vengeance or curses, Daldum writes the victim's name and assigns a number corresponding to a specific punishment. Instilling fear and awe, his sudden appearances terrify characters like Badriya and her mother, reinforcing the power and menace of Hajj Muhammad's occult practices. Symbolic presence. Daldum embodies superstition, fear, and manipulation, making the witch doctor's threats feel real and unavoidable. Later chapters even depict him as the shadow of death and a conduit for unleashing billions of demons during a prison riot, showing that his influence extends beyond the initial ritual scenes. In short, Daldum remains a persistent and ominous figure throughout the narrative, reinforcing themes of fear, superstition, and abuse of power. Daldum's role in the prison riot is deeply tied to the novel's supernatural and symbolic themes. According to the text, manifestation during riot, eyewitnesses claim Daldum appeared inside the haunted dorm number 13 during the chaos. His presence was linked to unleashing billions of demons that allegedly possessed inmates and staff, escalating the violence into a deadly spiritual battle. This interpretation frames the riot as not merely a physical conflict, but a metaphysical rebellion driven by demonic forces under Daldum's command. Connection to witchcraft. Daldum is portrayed as Hajj Muhammad's demonic servant and enforcer of black magic. In the riot context, he symbolizes the eruption of occult power into the prison environment, reinforcing fear and superstition among characters. Symbolic function. His appearance amplifies the sense of doom and chaos, making the riot seem inevitable and unstoppable. Daldum embodies the novel's critique of how fear and superstition can be weaponized to control and destabilize society. In short, Daldum's role is not as a physical instigator, but as a supernatural catalyst. His manifestation and the demons he commands transform the riot into a symbolic war between good and evil. magnifying the terror and destruction within the prison. Here are the key scenes involving Daldum and his narrative impact based on the text. 1. Manifestation in Haunted Dorm Number 13. Scene. Eyewitnesses claim to have seen Daldum manifest inside the haunted prison dormitory, unleashing billions of demons that possessed everyone in the prison. Impact. Atmospheric shift. This scene transforms the prison from a place of human cruelty into a supernatural hellscape, amplifying the novel's tone of dread and chaos. Symbolism. Daldum becomes a metaphor for ultimate corruption and evil, suggesting that systemic brutality invites demonic forces, both literal and figurative. Psychological effect. It heightens the terror for characters like Intisar, who already perceive the prison as a living grave. The demonic possession underscores the loss of autonomy and humanity under oppressive systems. 2. Opening the door to hell. Scene. The description likens the arrival of policewomen unlocking a cell to the angel of death releasing Satan and demons from the abyss, implicitly tied to Daldum's influence. Impact. Foreshadowing. This imagery signals Daldum's looming presence and the descent into a realm of torment, reinforcing the theme of institutionalized evil. Narrative function. It blurs the line between human and supernatural agents of suffering, making Daldum's role central to the novel's critique of patriarchal and carceral violence. 3. Daldum as catalyst for total collapse. Scene. After Daldum's manifestation, order disintegrates, guards, prisoners, and even authority figures succumb to chaos. Impact. Thematic resonance. Daldum's intervention marks the climax of moral and social breakdown, illustrating how unchecked cruelty breeds uncontrollable destruction. Plot consequence. This chaos accelerates the tragic trajectory for key characters, pushing the narrative toward its apocalyptic tone. Here's an imaginary suspense-laden stage play reconstruction of the deception, written to capture the tension, whispered plotting, and the dramatic moment of realization. Dramatic scene. The deception of Hajj Muhammad. Setting. A dimly lit alley near Gadaref's Grand Mosque. The night air is heavy, lanterns flicker against mud brick walls. Mona, disguised as Nada, walks slowly beside her blind father, Police Inspector Yassine in disguise. In the shadows, the friends watch, holding their breath. Stage directions. Lighting. A single lantern sways, casting long, shifting shadows. Mona's face is partially veiled, heightening the illusion. Sound. Crickets chirp faintly. The crowd's distant hum fades into silence as Hajj Muhammad approaches. Emotion. Suspense coils in the air. Every step feels like a heartbeat. Whispered dialogue before the encounter. Friend 1, whispering urgently, "Stay close, Mona. Remember, you're Nada tonight." His arrogance will blind him more than her father's eyes. Friend 2, gripping Mona's hand, "Courage. One slip and he will know. But if you hold steady, his downfall begins." Mona nods, her breath shallow but determined. The encounter. Hajj Muhammad, approaching, voice oily with authority so. Nada comes at last, obedient, with her father. "You see, even the defiant bow to me." Mona, softly, head lowered, "Yes. I have come, Hajj Muhammad." Her voice trembles, but she steadies it, clutching her father's arm. Blind father, innocently, unaware of the ruse, "She is here, my daughter, Nada. Do with us what you will." Suspenseful beat. The friends exchange tense glances in the shadows. Hajj Muhammad smiles smugly, convinced of his triumph. The lantern flickers, casting his face in grotesque relief. The realization. Hajj Muhammad, leaning closer, suspicious now, "Wait, your voice." It falters. "You are not." Mona, snapping her head up, eyes blazing, "No, I am not Nada. I am the mirror of your deceit. And tonight, your lies are exposed." Crowd, emerging from the shadows, voices rising, "He has been tricked. He is undone." Stage directions. The lantern light shifts suddenly, illuminating Mona's defiant face. Hajj Muhammad staggers back, his authority crumbling as the crowd surrounds him. The blind father clutches Mona's hand bewildered, but sensing the storm breaking around them. The friends step forward, triumphant, as whispers turn into shouts of outrage. Closing beat. Narrator's voice, somber, resonant, and so, arrogance was ensnared by courage. Hajj Muhammad, blinded by pride, fell into the trap woven by solidarity and truth. His downfall began not with swords, but with a girl's daring disguise. This reconstruction heightens the suspense: whispered plotting, Mona's trembling courage, Hajj Muhammad's smugness, and the electrifying moment of exposure. Here's an imaginary dramatic reconstruction of Hajj Muhammad's encounter with the gang leader Coco inside the prison, staged to highlight the tension, power dynamics, and symbolic meaning. Scene: Hajj Muhammad meets Coco in prison. Setting: Gaddarif Central Prison. The women's cries echo from distant cells. The men's ward is dim, reeking of sweat and iron. Hajj Muhammad, stripped of his former authority, is led into a chamber where Coco, the feared gang leader, waits. Stage directions. Lighting: a single bulb swings overhead, casting jagged shadows across the cracked walls. Sound: chains clink, footsteps echo. A low hum of prisoners murmuring fades as Coco steps forward. Emotion: Hajj Muhammad's arrogance collides with Coco's raw dominance. The air is thick with menace. Dialogue: Coco, leaning against the wall, voice low and dangerous, so, the mighty Hajj Muhammad, preacher of obedience, master of women's chains. And now? Just another prisoner. Hajj Muhammad, straightening, trying to reclaim authority. I am no ordinary man. Even here, I command respect. You will show me deference. Coco laughs harshly, stepping closer. Respect? Respect is earned in blood and fear, not sermons. Out there, you ruled with words twisted from holy law. In here, my law rules. Emotional beat. Hajj Muhammad falters, realizing his words carry no weight in Coco's domain. Coco circles him like a predator, the prisoners watching silently, waiting for the clash. Hajj Muhammad, voice cracking, desperate, you cannot touch me. I am a man of God. Coco, cutting him off, voice booming, God does not walk these halls. Only survival. And tonight, you will learn obedience. Stage directions. The bulb flickers, plunging the room into momentary darkness. When it steadies, Hajj Muhammad's face is pale, sweat dripping. Coco's shadow looms larger, symbolizing the inversion of power, the oppressor now oppressed. Closing beat. Narrator's voice, somber, reflective. Thus, Hajj Muhammad met Coco, the embodiment of prison's brutal law. In that encounter, his authority dissolved, his hypocrisy laid bare. The preacher of obedience became its victim, swallowed by the very chains he once commanded. This encounter dramatizes the collapse of Hajj Muhammad's authority. Outside, he wielded patriarchal power. Inside, Coco embodies a harsher law that strips him of all pretense. Scene-style summaries with dialogue and sensory detail. 1. The witch doctor's chamber and Daldum's entrance. The room reeks of incense and something darker, an acrid undertone that clings to the throat. Shadows flicker on mud walls as Hajj Muhammad lounges like a sated predator, his white robe stretched over a massive frame. His fingers, thick and ringed, trail across Badriya's tear-streaked cheek, lingering too long. Hajj Muhammad, growling, speak. Who dares to steal your joy? Badriya's mother, veiled in black, spits venom. Mother, Intisar Ibrahim Mustafa Jaber, the whore daughter of my rival wife. The name hangs in the air like a curse. Hajj Muhammad's lips curl into a grotesque smile. He snaps his fingers, and from the corner, a ripple in the darkness, emerges Daldum. Short, squat, clad in black from head to toe, his skin gleams like polished obsidian. His eyes are pits of malice. He clutches a black ledger, its pages inscribed with symbols that seem to be written. Hajj Muhammad, write the name. Daldum, intoning, I have written it, my Hajj. His voice vibrates like a drumbeat from the underworld. Badriya flinches, clutching her mother's arm. Daldum, what punishment do you seek? Choose a number. 1 to 13. Each number is a fate. Badriya's fingers tremble as they hover over the page. Badriya, whispering 9. Daldoom, grinning. Number 9 is confusion. Chaos. Lovers torn apart. The mother exhales sharply, her breath mingling with the smoke curling from the incense burner. Hajj Muhammad leans back, satisfied. Bring me her belongings, a shoe, a lock of hair. Her scent will guide my demons. Daldoom closes the ledger with a snap that sounds like a coffin lid. Daldoom, it begins. The room seems to darken as if the walls themselves recoil from what has been unleashed. 2. Enforcement of the verdict of obedience. Gedaref City, dawn. The door splinters under fists. 5 policemen storm in, boots pounding, rifles glinting. Policemen, barking, Firdas Ibrahim Mustafa Jaber. By order of the Sharia court, you are guilty of disobedience. Firdas stands rigid, fists clenched, eyes blazing. Intisar throws herself forward, arms outstretched. Intisar, crying no. She has committed no crime. The policemen yank Firdas, her screams slicing the air. Outside, neighbors watch in silence, fear shackling their tongues. Inside the police car, dust swirls through open windows. Firdas, defiant, you can cage my body, but never my soul. A slap cracks like a whip. Blood beads on her lips. Hours later, Khartoum looms, a mirage of minarets and tyranny. The Hilton's marble floors echo as policemen drag her through the freight elevator. Osman, smirking, my runaway bride returns. Even the state obeys me. Firdas, spitting words, you may cage me here, but you will never cage my spirit. Analysis. Daldoom's symbolic role. Daldoom is far more than a grotesque side character. He is a living metaphor for the unseen forces that sustain patriarchy and institutional corruption in the novel. His demonic presence amplifies the themes of fear, superstition, and manipulation that underpin the social order. 1. Embodiment of patriarchal power. Daldoom operates as the enforcer of Hajj Muhammad's will, mirroring how patriarchal systems use fear and coercion to control women. His rituals, requiring personal items, assigning punishments, echo the invasive control over women's bodies and choices sanctioned by law and custom. Symbolically, Daldoom represents the shadow judiciary, an extralegal mechanism that reinforces male dominance through terror rather than reason. 2. Intersection of superstition and institutional corruption. Daldoom's Black Book and numbered punishments parody the bureaucratic logic of Sharia courts, reducing justice to arbitrary codes. His presence legitimizes Hajj Muhammad's authority, showing how irrational beliefs are weaponized to maintain social hierarchies. The fear Daldoom inspires ensures compliance, much like corrupt institutions rely on intimidation and spectacle to enforce obedience. 3. Psychological control and social theater. Daldoom is a theatrical device. His ghoul-like appearance and ritualistic pronouncements dramatize the absurdity of a system where women's fates hinge on superstition. He symbolizes the internalized terror that keeps women submissive even when legal or moral grounds for resistance exist. 4. Broader thematic resonance. Daldoom's demonic aura underscores the novel's critique of a society where law, religion, and magic collude to strip women of agency. He is the dark twin of the Sharia judge. Both claim divine sanction, both enforce obedience, but Daldoom exposes the raw, primal fear beneath the veneer of legality. In essence, Daldoom is not just a supernatural curiosity. He is the embodiment of systemic oppression, an avatar of fear that sustains patriarchal control through ritualized violence and psychological domination. His grotesque presence mirrors the corruption of institutions that claim moral authority while perpetuating injustice. Here's a summary of the problems faced by Hajj Muhammad and Mr. Osman Al-Taib inside the jail, based on the novel. 1. Brutal physical torture. Both men were severely beaten by police interrogators and prison guards using batons, rods, and sticks. Hajj Muhammad suffered extreme mutilation, having his ears ripped off, leaving him permanently disfigured. Mr. Osman Al-Taib was beaten to the point of near death and described being trampled during a stampede. 2. Humiliation and dehumanization. They were treated like drunkards or whores, enduring unbearable humiliation during interrogations. The violence was systematic, aimed at breaking their dignity and spirit. 3. Permanent physical damage. Hajj Muhammad became deaf and earless, while Mr. Osman was left lame for life due to injuries. These injuries were not accidental, but deliberate acts of cruelty. 4. Harsh prison conditions. Overcrowded, filthy cells with foul-smelling toilets, millions of flies by day, and mosquito infestations at night. Lack of basic necessities such as soap, shoes, and clean bedding unless provided by family. 5. Psychological and spiritual trauma. Rumors and beliefs among inmates framed the violence as a spiritual battle, adding fear and isolation. Witnesses claimed demonic possession and supernatural forces were involved, caused by countless demons unleashed by Dal Doom, deepening the sense of terror. 6. Corruption and exploitation. Bribery and collusion with officials were common. Those without money faced harsher treatment. Medical checks were corrupt, declaring prisoners fit for jail regardless of injuries. Here's a comparison of jail experiences drawn from the text. 1. Intisar. Experience. Late she is arrested at Khartoum Airport, thrown into Khobar Central Prison for Women. She feared torture and gang rape, having heard horrific stories of teenage girls beaten and raped in prison. Her ordeal was tied to charges of apostasy and disobedience. Conditions: extreme vulnerability, systemic gender-based violence, and psychological terror. Her resilience is shown in her refusal to implicate her Christian friend Susan despite threats of mutilation and rape. 2. Osman Al-Taib. Experience: sentenced to 6 months in prison for bribery and complicity in systemic abuse. His time in jail contrasts sharply with his former life of wealth and privilege. Conditions: humiliation, robbed by fellow inmates, slapped by a sergeant, and stripped of dignity. His bitterness and anger reflect the collapse of his patriarchal power. 3. Omar the Magician. Experience: sentenced to 14 years with hard labor for kidnapping and rape, plus 2 years for escaping prison through bribery. Conditions: his criminal identity persists even behind bars, symbolizing corruption and impunity. Unlike Intisar, his suffering is framed as deserved punishment rather than injustice. 4. Osman Mahmoud Al-Ajabo, a.k.a. Al-Wash. Experience: also sentenced to 14 years with hard labor. Inside prison, he maintained influence through extortion and smuggling networks. Conditions: his jail time underscores the theme of unchecked male aggression. He thrives in chaos, contrasting with Intisar's vulnerability. 5. Osman Al-Taib and Hajj Muhammad. Experience: brutally beaten by police interrogators and criminals. The old geezer describes being trampled, robbed, and humiliated, witnessing Hajj Muhammad's ears ripped off before a gang leader known as Koko, the son of Satan. Conditions: torture and near-death experiences reveal the brutality of Sudanese prisons, even for influential figures. 6. Mahjoub Al-Hilali, politician. Experience: arrested for adultery, thrown into a filthy men's lockup. He felt out of place among drunks, thieves, and madmen. Conditions: loss of status and exposure to violence, robbed, slapped, and degraded, contrasts with his former luxurious life. Key contrasts: gendered violence. Intisar's experience is rooted in systemic oppression and sexual violence, legitimized by Sharia law, unlike men's punishments which stem from corruption or crime. Power dynamics. Osman and Mahjoub's humiliation reflects the fall of patriarchal privilege, while Omar and Al-Wash adapt and exploit prison systems. Severity. Religious figures and rebels endure extreme physical torture, whereas wealthy men suffer social disgrace more than bodily harm. Here's an outline of the events that occur after the fugitives see the newspapers. 1. Delivery of newspapers. A messenger brings newspapers, but hands them to the village chief instead of the guests. The imam opens the first page, and his expression changes from friendly to hostile. 2. Imam's reaction. He reads silently, trembling and sweating as if in a steam bath. The fugitives panic, fearing exposure for kidnapping and bribery. 3. Shocking revelation. The newspapers contain scandalous images of their associate, Haj Mohammed, caught committing a heinous crime, rape of a minor. The fugitives are horrified and discard the newspapers like they were infected. 4. Fear of punishment. They expect severe punishment, stoning or beheading, but the chief opts for banishment. The chief orders them to leave the village immediately, threatening hanging or decapitation if they disobey. The 2 newspaper articles shown to the 2 fugitives, Maulana Mahjoub al-Hilali in Dalisa village, deliver shocking and humiliating revelations about Haj Mohammed. First article. It exposes their friend, Haj Mohammed, in a scandalous situation. The front page displays him completely naked with a teenage girl, also partially naked, in what is described as an act of immorality. The report states that more than 50 witnesses saw him committing a serious crime of rape with a 16-year-old girl in his house. The police, led by Inspector Yassin, arrested him, and the crime was classified as a grave offense. This revelation terrifies the fugitives, as it destroys the reputation of their ally and implicates him in a heinous act. Second article. It further confirms the disgrace by portraying the fugitives themselves as crooks and rapists. The village chief, enraged by what he read, throws the newspapers at them and orders them to leave the holy ground of Dalisa immediately. The fugitives fear severe punishment, stoning or beheading, but instead, they are banished from the village under threat of hanging if they disobey. In short, the newspapers reveal sexual scandal, criminal charges, and moral collapse, turning the fugitives' world upside down and forcing them into exile. Excerpts from the novel. The other 2 evil fugitives, the imam of the largest mosque in the city of Gadaref, Maulana Sheikh Marzouk, and the famous senior politician, Mr. Mahjoub al-Hilali, also decided to leave the boring village Dalisa and its naive inhabitants and follow in the footsteps of their partner in crime, Haj Mohammed, and return to their beautiful homes. It was Mr. Mahjoub al-Hilali who suggested leaving the naive villagers and returning to the civilized townspeople. At first, Maulana Sheikh Marzouk rejected the idea and preferred to spend more days before coming out of their safe hiding place. But when the politician insisted that he would return on his own, Imam al-Mubarak bowed to pressure. Actually, the politician said that he misses his favorite TV series, and since there is not a single TV in the whole village, he decided to go home that day and watch his favorite show. Maulana agreed to accompany his friend, but made a proposal. They must read the morning newspapers, and if nothing is said of their involvement in the crime of their arrested friend, the old man, they can say goodbye to their kindly hospitable host and catch the city bus and go home. Before sharing their hearts with the village chief, the 2 fugitives sent the same man who had brought the newspapers the day before to bring today's newspapers. The messenger went and came back in less than half an hour. But instead of handing over the newspapers to the respected guests, he went straight and handed them over to the chief of his village. When the imam of the village mosque opened the first folio and saw the first page, his face turned from friendly to angry to hostile to demonic until he became monstrous and very ugly. He began reading the newspaper silently, his hands trembling and his body sweating like he had suddenly entered a hot steam bath. By then the hearts of the 2 fugitives had almost stopped and their bodies were sweating and shaking in sheer terror. They concluded that the newspaper revealed their involvement in kidnapping and bribery crimes. Suddenly, the angry imam stopped reading, turned his ugly face, and shouted at his frightened guests, "Who are you people?" The virtuous Maulana replied in a low voice, "We are human beings. We are good citizens," said the great politician. "You 2 evil men are charlatans and usurpers." Then the terribly angry chief of the village Dalisa threw the 2 newspapers in their faces and ordered them to read them. The 2 fugitives took the newspapers, looked at the front pages, and witnessed the unbelievable. If they saw the devil appear before their eyes with his black horns on his head, they would not be so afraid. The newspapers showed their friend Haj Mohammed standing naked, his penis fully erect, like a cannon ready to fire, and under him a beautiful teenager falling on her back while she was half naked. The girl's hairy pussy was also shown. Haj Mohammed, the man of clean business, was arrested by Police Inspector Yassin. More than 50 people witnessed the witch doctor while he was committing haram and immorality with a 16-year-old girl in his house. The police authority considered the crime committed by him as serious rape. Both frightened friends, the religious cleric and political leader, decided not to read any more because what they saw told them everything. Therefore, they both got rid of the newspapers as if they carried dangerous infectious diseases such as the coronavirus. Then they looked at the village chief and waited for him to pass judgment on them. One expected the enraged chieftain to summon the villagers and order them to throw stones at them and stone them to death for being crooks and rapists, while the other fugitive looked forward to the death penalty of beheading by double-edged swords. Yet the angry village head did none of this. He only ordered them to leave the holy ground of his village Dalesa immediately, or else he would tell his subjects to hang them to death or have his men cut off their heads by axes. The angry chief also swore to God and the divorce of his 4 wives that he would not allow them to travel in the village bus. The 3 had come to his village on foot and so had to leave on foot. Fearing that the outraged chief would change his mind and order the villagers to beat them to death and then burn their bodies, the 2 fleeing fugitives fled the village Dalesa as if they were being pursued by an angry mob of Muslim terrorists. Not only did they leave behind the angry village chief and his naive subjects, but they also forgot the 10 billion Sudanese pounds of the imprisoned rapist, the old man Mr. Osman Al-Taib. Excerpts of the trap set for Hajj Muhammad through the friends Frida, Osman, Intisar, Sami, Salah, Mona, Badriya, and Walid Hamza. It was the clever Sudanese lawyer Salah who came up with the idea to ambush and trap the mastermind who hatched the 2 evil plots of the so-called halal Islamic marriages of the 2 innocent sisters Intisar and Firdaus. Unfortunately, the plan did not work as he expected, and the first innocent girl, Mona, was raped again by the evil witch doctor, Hajj Muhammad. Mona told the friends that the evil wizard had used his power of black magic and hypnotized her and put Police Inspector Yassin to sleep too. The last thing she remembered is asking the notorious womanizer Hajj Muhammad if she could join his work. After that, she does not know what happened to her except that she suddenly awakens from the effect of hypnosis and finds the evil man climbing over her body while he was brutally raping her. Similarly, Inspector Yassin made the same allegation that he fell into a long coma and could not wake up from it until Mona screamed for help and his undercover policeman, the journalist, and other visitors rushed to rescue her. Now the big question. That's why the friends agreed to devise a risky plan that caused the first innocent girl Mona to be raped again by another human beast. She was the same victim who was kidnapped and brutally gang-raped by Al-Wash and his gang. Friends had already extracted Hajj Muhammad's recorded confession that he was the mastermind of 2 evil plots. They did it through Frida, who played the beautiful and sexy girl Saham. Indeed, friends were forced to draw such a dangerous trap. After the 2 evil criminals, the old man Al-Sayed Osman Al-Taib and the magician Omar Ibrahim Mustafa Jabir, went behind bars, the friends decided to file an official complaint against the conspirators. Before doing so, Salah, as a newly established barrister, believes it would be wise to seek the advice of a senior attorney. The senior lawyer told him that the recorded confession of Hajj Muhammad might not be admissible in court if the other suspected men denied their involvement in the plots to the so-called social counselor. Salah learned that the Sharia court had already dealt with the matter and issued its ruling in favor of Mr. Osman Al-Taib and his gang. Accordingly, the case can be dismissed by the High Court if the suspects present the same evidence they submitted to the Sharia court. Therefore, lawyer Salah came up with the idea of seducing Hajj Muhammad again. The main objective was to prove that he is a public illusionist who uses black magic to achieve his evil schemes and deceive people. The friends knew they couldn't send Frida back because she had already gone to him and seduced him and thus elicited from him what he admitted in tape: he was the mastermind of the 2 sham marriages. They also knew that they could not send Intisar because Hajj Muhammad had seen her in the Sharia court and most likely knew that she was the girl who married Hassan Majub al-Hilali against her consent. Finally, when no other girl could be found, the first innocent girl Mona volunteered to play the attractive and sexy maiden of heaven. Badriya and Farida, who had visited Hajj Muhammad's house before, told Mona about the fearsome, demonic man Daldun. They gave her a full description of the dark sack of death and what his primary duty was in black magic. They told her not to be afraid of him when he appeared before her eyes. They said further to her that he would not harm the visitors of the witch doctor, Hajj Muhammad. He is supposed to act as a liaison between the great wizard and his unseen demons. So, when he appears before her eyes, she should not be afraid of him. They knew the witch doctor uses him to scare his female visitors so that he could manipulate and seduce them sexually. After that, the friends shared their brilliant plan with journalist Shams el-Din. The enterprising journalist immediately accepted the plan and agreed to play his part in it. At first, the friends wanted the journalist to play the role of the blind father, but he came up with a different proposal. According to him, the best person to play the role of the blind father is Inspector Yasin. The famous journalist Shamsuddin and Inspector Yasin become close friends after the former bestowed upon the latter the title of the Great Worthy Police Inspector and Greatest Man in Law Enforcement. So, Police Inspector Yasin agreed to the friends' plan, especially after seeing that such a role will increase his greatness when he arrests the famous witch doctor who uses black magic to deceive the good citizens of the city and steal their money. After that, the blind father and his daughter arrived an hour before Hajj Muhammad returned from the village Dalisa to his residence in the city. The blind father and his beautiful and sexy daughter were the first visitors that day. 15 minutes after their arrival, 5 plainclothes policemen, along with journalist Shams el-Din, arrived at the house of the man of unclean business. They are all recorded as visitors who have come to seek justice from the man of power and greatness, the compassionate witch doctor. Unfortunately, as we mentioned, the plan did not work out well, and the notorious womanizer raped the first innocent girl Mona in front of the police inspector, Yasin. However, the unclean businessman was arrested on more serious charges than those related to the crimes of Al-Waish and his gang, the evil old man Mr. Osman Al-Taib, and the 6th criminal, the magician Omar. At the police headquarters, the Gadaref City Police drafted a long list of the charge sheet of heinous crimes against the fraudster and the rapist of the innocent girl. He was accused of being caught in the act of rape, black magic, public deception, hypnotizing male visitors and beautiful teenage female visitors, and raping their beautiful daughters in front of them. The text portrays a stark contrast in the power dynamics between the sorcerer, Hajj Muhammad, and the gang leader, Coco, rooted in their respective spheres of influence and the circumstances that bring them into conflict. Hajj Muhammad's power. Religious and patriarchal authority. He is depicted as a manipulative figure entrenched in patriarchal and religious networks. He uses his status as a respected elder and witch doctor to orchestrate forced marriages, exploit women, and legitimize oppression under the guise of Sharia law. His power is systemic. He influences families, collaborates with elites, and leverages cultural norms to maintain control. Psychological and social manipulation. His strength lies in deception and coercion. He boasts about masterminding conspiracies, receiving bribes, and using spiritual intimidation, black magic, and fear of divine punishment to dominate others. Coco's power. Physical and criminal dominance. He is described as the son of Satan and a ruthless gang leader, wields raw physical force, and commands loyalty through fear. His authority is rooted in violence, beatings, torture, and humiliation. In prison, Coco's gang operates like an organized criminal enterprise, overpowering even influential figures like Hajj Muhammad. Humiliation as control. Coco asserts dominance by publicly degrading Hajj Muhammad, ordering his men to gag him with a filthy rag and leaving him battered. This act symbolizes a reversal of hierarchy. The spiritual manipulator becomes a helpless victim under brute force. Dynamic between them. Shift from spiritual to physical power. Hajj Muhammad's influence collapses in the face of Coco's corporeal violence. While Hajj Muhammad thrives in a system that values religious authority, Coco thrives in lawless spaces where strength and savagery rule. Symbolic clash. Their confrontation represents a collision between two oppressive systems, patriarchal religious control and anarchic criminal power. Ultimately, Coco's dominance is immediate and tangible, whereas Hajj Muhammad's is ideological and systemic. The conflict between Hajj Muhammad and Coco in the text is portrayed as a brutal and symbolic clash, blending physical violence with spiritual undertones. Here are the key themes. 1. Extreme physical violence. The confrontation escalates into shocking brutality. Coco mutilates Hajj Muhammad by ripping off his ears, leaving him permanently deaf and disfigured. This act is described vividly, emphasizing bloodshed and savagery. Coco's rage spirals into indiscriminate violence against prisoners, creating chaos and terror within the prison dormitory. 2. Power and domination. Coco asserts dominance through sheer physical force, positioning himself as a tyrannical figure feared by all. The attack symbolizes a struggle for supremacy within the prison hierarchy, where violence becomes the ultimate tool of control. 3. Spiritual and supernatural dimensions. Observers interpret the fight as more than a physical altercation. They believe Hajj Muhammad, a witch doctor, unleashed his demonic forces, led by the fearsome entity Daldum, against Coco. The narrative frames the battle as a cosmic war between demonic hosts, Hajj Muhammad's spirits versus Coco, depicted as the son of Satan. This adds a layer of mythic and religious symbolism to the conflict. 4. Collapse of order. The incident triggers widespread panic, with prisoners screaming and stampeding, while jailers hesitate to intervene. The chaos reflects the fragility of institutional control when confronted with raw violence and perceived supernatural forces. 5. Moral and psychological undercurrents. The fight exposes the dark interplay of fear, superstition, and corruption within the prison system. It underscores themes of evil, rebellion, and the destructive consequences of unchecked power, both human and spiritual. Comparison with the conflicts of other characters in the novel. The conflict of Firdaus being forcibly taken under the verdict of obedience, or Intisar's resistance to her forced marriage, reflects several broader themes that run through the novel. 1. Patriarchal control and legalized oppression. The clash between individual autonomy and systemic coercion is central. The House of Obedience and court-issued verdicts symbolize how patriarchal norms are codified into law, stripping women of agency. These conflicts dramatize the novel's critique of a society where obedience is enforced through fear, violence, and religious justification. Example: Firdaus's abduction under police guard shows how state power colludes with family and religious authority to maintain male dominance. 2. Resistance and its cost. Both Intisar and Firdaus resist oppressive structures, but their defiance triggers severe legal repercussion threats, torture, and social ostracism. This tension underscores the theme that resistance is courageous yet perilous, highlighting the fragility of women's rights in such a system. 3. Intersection of religion, law, and culture. The conflict exposes how religious doctrine is weaponized to legitimize misogyny. Sharia rulings on obedience and guardianship are portrayed as tools for control rather than justice, embedding inequality in both law and social norms. 4. Corruption and hypocrisy. Behind the facade of piety lies systemic corruption, bribery, collusion, and exploitation by clerics and elites. These conflicts reveal a society where morality is compromised for power, amplifying the novel's critique of institutional failure. 5. Love and identity. Personal struggles, like Intisar's love for Sammy, become acts of rebellion against oppressive norms. These intimate conflicts mirror the broader theme of identity and freedom, contrasting romantic ideals with societal constraints. In essence, these conflicts are not isolated incidents. They serve as narrative devices to expose gendered violence, systemic injustice, and the human yearning for dignity and autonomy. They transform private tragedies into a powerful indictment of cultural and legal structures that perpetuate inequality. In short, their conflict transforms private tragedy into a powerful indictment of gendered violence and systemic injustice. Here are some key quotes from the novel that vividly illustrate the central themes. 1. Fear as a weapon and authority in absence. Then prepare yourself. Shadows have long arms, and they reach even here. Shakusha's mocking laugh as he delivers Alwash's warning. This line encapsulates how fear is used to maintain control even when the leader is physically absent. It reflects the theme of power through intimidation and the indirect enforcement of authority. 2. Resistance versus obedience. Osman, taunting, "You cannot escape me, Furtus. You are made to obey." This quote starkly represents the patriarchal demand for submission and sets the stage for Furtus's violent resistance, underscoring the novel's critique of enforced obedience. 3. Acts of defiance against patriarchy. Furtus, through clenched teeth, biting harder, "This is the silence you deserve." Her physical retaliation becomes symbolic, a refusal to be silenced by patriarchal norms, reinforcing the theme of female resistance against systemic oppression. 4. Gender bias and guardianship. "You have big boobs, long hair, and you have a pussy, not a cock. Shut up your mouth, you tramp and impolite." This crude assertion exposes the absurdity of a legal system that equates guardianship with gender, highlighting the satirical critique of patriarchal law and its exclusion of women from authority. 5. Religious justification for violence. "Whether you accept me or not, I am your only legal Muslim husband. I must sleep with you tonight on the bed and fuck your pussy by my big dick tomorrow also," backed by divine religious authority. This chilling declaration illustrates how religious law is weaponized to legitimize sexual violence, revealing the intersection of faith and coercion. 6. Symbol of love and survival. She never parted from her watch. It is the only gift her lover Sammy bought for her. Its rhythmic beating represents the beating of Sammy's heart. This tender moment contrasts with the brutality elsewhere, symbolizing love as resistance and hope amid oppression. The gang leader Coco attacks Hajj Muhammad in prison because he feels humiliated and challenged when the witch doctor refuses his request for protection. The text explains that Coco, the gang leader, expected obedience and submission, but Hajj Muhammad asserted his wealth and influence, claiming he could protect himself and even buy off the authorities. This defiance enraged Coco, who then resorted to brutal violence to reassert dominance and punish what he perceived as disrespect. The attack was extremely savage. Coco ripped off Hajj Muhammad's ears in front of other prisoners, roared like a beast, and ordered his men to beat him mercilessly. Later, they stuffed a filthy rag into Hajj Muhammad's mouth to silence him, leaving him severely injured and humiliated. This scene underscores Coco's role as a tyrannical figure in the prison, enforcing control through terror and physical brutality. Here's a concise summary of the prison conflict involving Coco, Hajj Muhammad, and Osman al-Taib based on the document. Background: Coco Wad al-Shaitan, also called Son of the Devil, was the ruthless leader of a violent prison gang operating inside Gaddaref Central Prison. Hajj Muhammad, a notorious witch doctor, and Osman al-Taib, a wealthy tycoon, were imprisoned for their roles in forced marriages, sexual violence, and corruption. Triggering events: Coco's gang plotted to blackmail Osman and Hajj Muhammad using confession papers. Tensions escalated when prison guards threw 2 corpses into the gang's dormitory, sparking paranoia and anger among Coco's men. The violent clash. Coco unleashed vigilante justice. Against Hajj Muhammad, he ripped off the witch doctor's ears, leaving him permanently deaf. Against Osman al-Taib, Coco and his gang brutally tortured Osman, beating him with sticks, stuffing a dirty cloth in his mouth, and fracturing his skull, ribs, and leg. Osman fell into a coma and was left permanently lame. The gang's violence spiraled into a full-scale riot involving hundreds of inmates, guards, and police officers. Tear gas and armed force were deployed to regain control. Spiritual dimension. Eyewitnesses claimed the fight had a supernatural element. They believed Hajj Muhammad summoned billions of demonic spirits led by Dracula Dal Doom, which possessed inmates and staff, turning the prison into a haunted dorm number 13. This interpretation added a layer of fear and mysticism to the chaos. Aftermath. Osman and Haj Muhammad were hospitalized in the prison ICU. Osman remained crippled for life. Haj Muhammad was deaf and disfigured. Coco's dominance inside prison was cemented, but the riot left a trail of destruction, injuries, and deaths among prisoners and guards. Here are the key details about Haj Muhammad's arrest from the document. Initial arrest. Haj Muhammad, described as a man of clean business and a witch doctor, was arrested by Police Inspector Yassin after being caught committing haram and immorality with a 16-year-old girl in his house. This act was witnessed by more than 50 people. The police classified the crime as serious rape. Police raid. On the morning of the arrest, Inspector Yassin and plainclothes officers raided his residence. They tied up Haj Muhammad and his workers. During the raid, they searched for his assistant Daldoom, who escaped mysteriously. Charges. At the police headquarters, a long charge sheet was prepared against him, including rape of an innocent girl in front of witnesses, black magic and public deception, hypnotizing male visitors and teenage girls, orchestrating false marriages and sinister plots, confession and evidence. His confession was secretly recorded by Frida using a detective tape. He admitted to masterminding 2 false marriage conspiracies and using black magic and hypnosis for manipulation. Bribery and collusion. Earlier, he had been arrested and released due to a bribe paid by Osman Al-Taib to Inspector Hussein. Later, Inspector Yassin took over the case after Hussein was dismissed for bribery involvement. Current status. Haj Muhammad is serving a 24-year life sentence in Gedaref Central Prison for rape, black magic, and public deceit. The text reveals that Haj Muhammad faced multiple serious legal charges due to his role as a central figure in a network of criminal and exploitative acts. Here is a clear breakdown. Primary charges. Rape. Yassin took over. He was caught in the act of sexually assaulting a 16-year-old girl in his home, witnessed by over 50 people. This was considered a grave offense under Sudanese criminal law. Black magic and hypnosis. He used sorcery and hypnotic techniques to manipulate visitors, particularly women and teenage girls. These practices were employed to gain control and facilitate sexual abuse. Public deception and fraud. Posed as a spiritual healer and social counselor while engaging in criminal acts. Exploited religious beliefs and cultural norms for personal gain. Masterminding sinister plots. Orchestrated 2 major conspiracies involving false marriages and coercion of women, including Intisar and Firdaus. Collaborated with influential figures like Osman Al-Taib and Majub Al-Hilali, using bribery and manipulation of Sharia law. Bribery and collusion. Accepted bribes from powerful men to legitimize sham marriages and enforce obedience verdicts. Played a key role in exploiting guardianship laws for forced marriages. Sentence. He is serving a 24-year life sentence in Gedaref Central Prison for these crimes, which include rape, black magic, public deceit, and systemic manipulation of victims and their families. Here's another concise summary of Haj Muhammad's trial and sentencing based on the document. Background and charges. Haj Muhammad, described as a witch doctor and manipulator, was the mastermind behind 2 major conspiracies involving forced marriages, black magic, and systemic abuse. His crimes included orchestrating sham marriages using intimidation and religious manipulation, employing black magic, hypnosis, and deceit to control victims and their families, exploiting Sharia law for personal gain, and collaborating with influential figures like Osman Al-Taib and Majub Al-Hilali. Sexual violence, hypnotizing visitors and raping teenage girls in front of their families. Trial proceedings. Initially, he evaded justice through bribery and collusion with corrupt officials. Later, overwhelming evidence, including confessions and testimonies, led to his conviction. The court recognized his role as the central architect of systemic crimes, differentiating him from accomplices whose acts were more direct, like kidnapping and rape. Sentencing. Haj Muhammad was sentenced to 24 years in Gedaref Central Prison. Charges covered: rape, mysticism to the chaos, black magic and public deceit, hypnotizing and sexually assaulting minors. His punishment symbolized a rare triumph of justice against entrenched corruption and patriarchal abuse. Here's a clear summary of the main points from the novel. Main themes. Core narrative. The novel The Verdict of Obedience Against the Muslim Wife follows three Muslim girls, Intisar, Firdaus, and Mona, who face injustice, violence, and persecution under patriarchal, religious, and legal systems in Sudan. Focus. It is both a love story and a social critique, exposing misogynistic practices tied to marriage, sexuality, and women's rights under oppressive interpretations of Sharia law. Central character. Intisar, punished simply for loving freely, becomes the lens through which systemic cruelty and resistance are explored. Setting. Gadaref, Sudan. Conservative, tightly knit Muslim community. Economic hardship, frequent power outages. Women's lives are strictly controlled by family and religious leaders. Atmosphere is stifling for young women seeking freedom. Khartoum, Sudan. Offers more anonymity and opportunity, but also danger. Risks include harassment, police brutality, forced marriage. Key locations: hotels, universities, Grand Mosque, Kober Central Prison for Women. Sudanese prisons. Depicted as overcrowded, unsanitary, and violent. Women inmates suffer torture, abuse, and dehumanization. Key takeaways. The novel highlights patriarchal authority intertwined with religion and law in Sudan. It portrays the resilience of women who resist oppressive systems despite severe consequences. The narrative extends beyond Sudan into Ethiopia and Canada, showing the broader impact of displacement and survival. Overall, it is a plea for compassion and freedom, emphasizing the human cost of misogyny and systemic injustice. Nada's role is framed as a pivotal act of resistance against patriarchal and religious oppression. Here's a structured breakdown of how her courage leads to Hajj Muhammad's exposure and downfall. Nada's courage. Defiance of silence. Unlike many who remain subdued by fear, Nada chooses to speak out against injustice, refusing to accept the verdicts of obedience imposed on women. Risk-taking. She knowingly places herself in danger by confronting Hajj Muhammad's authority, showing that truth is worth more than personal safety. Symbolic act. Her bravery represents the collective voice of oppressed women, breaking the cycle of silence and complicity. Exposure of Hajj Muhammad. Revealing hypocrisy. Nada unmasks Hajj Muhammad's manipulation of religion and law for personal power, exposing the gap between his public piety and private corruption. Public testimony. Through her words and actions, she brings hidden abuses into the open, forcing society to confront what was previously concealed. Catalyst for awareness. Her courage inspires others to question authority, weakening Hajj Muhammad's control over the community. Downfall of Hajj Muhammad. Loss of legitimacy. Once exposed, Hajj Muhammad's moral and religious authority collapses, stripping him of the respect that sustained his power. Community backlash. The revelations trigger outrage, isolating him socially and politically. Justice and consequence. His downfall is not just personal, but symbolic, representing the crumbling of oppressive structures when confronted by truth and resistance. Key takeaway. Nada's courage is the turning point. By daring to confront entrenched authority, she transforms private suffering into public reckoning. Her bravery doesn't just defeat Hajj Muhammad, it demonstrates how resistance can dismantle systemic oppression. Reconstructing this moment as a dramatic scene, with dialogue, stage cues, and emotional beats, so you can experience the confrontation viscerally, almost like a play. That could bring Nada's courage and Hajj Muhammad's downfall vividly to life. Here's a stage play-style reconstruction of the moment when Nada's courage exposes Hajj Muhammad, written with dialogue, cues, and emotional beats, so you can feel the confrontation unfold viscerally. Dramatic scene. The exposure of Hajj Muhammad. Setting. A crowded courtyard in Khartoum, dusk. Lanterns flicker against the walls of the Grand Mosque. Villagers gather, whispers ripple through the crowd. At the center, Hajj Muhammad stands tall, cloaked in authority. Nada steps forward, her voice trembling but resolute. Stage directions. Lighting. A single harsh lantern illuminates Hajj Muhammad, casting long shadows. As Nada speaks, the light shifts to her, symbolizing truth breaking through darkness. Sound. Murmurs of the crowd swell and fade. A distant drumbeat underscores tension. Emotion. Fear grips the audience, but anticipation builds as Nada raises her voice. Dialogue. Nada, firm, voice rising, you preach obedience, Hajj Muhammad, yet your hands are stained with betrayal. You hide behind the veil of piety, but I have seen the truth. You exploit the law, not to protect faith, but to enslave women. Crowd, murmuring, shocked, she dares to speak. Hajj Muhammad, angrily, trying to silence her, silence, girl. You know nothing of the law. You defy God himself by standing against me. Nada, stepping closer, unwavering, no, I defy you. God is not cruelty. God is not chains. You twist his words to serve your power. Tonight, I will not be silent. Tonight, everyone will know. Emotional beat. Nada's voice cracks with emotion, but she steadies herself. The crowd leans in, emboldened by her defiance. Hajj Muhammad falters, his authority slipping as whispers turn into shouts. Villager 1, calling out, is it true, Hajj Muhammad? Did you force marriages? Did you imprison the innocent? Villager 2, angrily, we trusted you. You betrayed us. Hajj Muhammad, desperate, voice breaking, lies. All lies. She is just a girl. Nada, cutting him off, voice ringing like a bell, a girl, yes. But a girl was unafraid. And that is enough to bring you down. Stage directions. The lantern flickers, then steadies on Nada. Hajj Muhammad's shadow shrinks, swallowed by the crowd's rising anger. The drumbeat stops, silence, heavy and final. Closing beat. Crowd, chanting unified justice. 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 Narrator's voice, soft, reflective, and so, with the courage of one brave girl, the fortress of fear crumbled. Hajj Muhammad's downfall was not wrought by swords or chains, but by truth spoken aloud. This reconstruction shows how Nada's courage transforms the atmosphere, from fear to collective defiance, from silence to justice. Why the friends decide to send Mona pretending to be Nada and her blind father to entice Hajj Muhammad. Here's a clear breakdown of the strategic reasons behind the friends' decision to send Mona disguised as Nada, accompanied by her blind father, to entice Hajj Muhammad. Narrative strategy. Deception as resistance. The friends know Hajj Muhammad is obsessed with controlling and punishing Nada. By sending Mona in her place, they exploit his fixation and lure him into a trap of his own making. Blind father as cover. The presence of the blind father adds credibility to the disguise. His inability to see ensures he cannot betray the ruse, while his presence reassures Hajj Muhammad that this is truly Nada's family. Tactical motives. Protecting the real Nada. Nada's safety is paramount. By substituting Mona, they shield Nada from direct danger while still advancing their plan to expose Hajj Muhammad. Enticement through familiarity. Hajj Muhammad is more likely to trust and approach Nada if she appears with her father, reinforcing the illusion and lowering his guard. Creating evidence of corruption. The scheme is designed to draw Hajj Muhammad into compromising actions, which can then be revealed publicly to dismantle his authority. Symbolic meaning. Solidarity among women. Mona's willingness to risk herself for Nada demonstrates the collective courage of women resisting patriarchal oppression. It's not just one voice, it's a chorus of defiance. Turning obedience against him, Hajj Muhammad demands obedience from women, but here obedience is weaponized. Mona obeys the plan to deceive him, flipping his own tactics back on him. Key takeaway. The friend's decision is both practical and symbolic. It protects Nada, manipulates Hajj Muhammad's arrogance, and sets the stage for his exposure. It shows how resistance often requires cunning, solidarity, and the willingness to risk deception to reveal truth. Here's a structured outline of the impact of Hajj Muhammad's conviction on the broader conspiracy and the other key figures you mentioned. Impact on the wider conspiracy. Collapse of authority. Hajj Muhammad's conviction dismantles the central pillar of the patriarchal conspiracy, exposing the hypocrisy of those who used religion and law to oppress women. Ripple effect. His downfall sends shockwaves through the network of collaborators, forcing them into defensive positions and weakening their collective power. Public awakening. The exposure emboldens ordinary citizens to question the legitimacy of religious and political leaders who had long gone unchallenged. Osman al-Taib. Loss of political cover. As a figure who benefited from Hajj Muhammad's authority, Osman loses the protective shield of religious legitimacy. Scrutiny of corruption. His own dealings, financial or political, come under investigation, as the conviction opens the door to uncovering hidden abuses. Isolation. Allies distance themselves to avoid being implicated, leaving him vulnerable. Mahjoub al-Hilali. Exposure of complicity. Mahjoub's role in enabling or profiting from the conspiracy is dragged into the light. Reputation ruined. Once seen as a respected figure, he becomes tainted by association, his credibility destroyed. Potential legal consequences. With Hajj Muhammad convicted, Mahjoub faces heightened risk of prosecution or exile. The Imam. Crisis of religious authority. The Imam, who upheld or legitimized Hajj Muhammad's actions, faces a crisis of faith among followers. Erosion of trust. Believers begin to doubt the sincerity of religious leadership, seeing it as complicit in oppression. Pressure to reform. The Imam is forced to either distance himself from the conspiracy or risk losing his congregation entirely. Key takeaway. Hajj Muhammad's conviction is not just a personal downfall, it fractures the entire conspiracy, stripping away layers of protection and exposing the rot within political, social, and religious institutions. Osman al-Taib, Mahjoub al-Hilali, and the Imam each face loss of legitimacy, exposure of complicity, and erosion of power, marking a turning point in the struggle against systemic oppression. Excerpts from the novel. Hajj Muhammad falls in the hands of Cuckoo. It so happened that a few days after the day a secret extortion deal was made between Coco's gang and the evil old man, another suspect came from another dorm during his free time to inquire about his suspected close friend, Mr. Osman al-Taib. Unfortunately, the inquirer fell into the hands of the ruthless bodyguards. Coco, the son of the elf, shouted at him with a coarse voice like an angry ogre what your crime is. The inquirer said, I am not a criminal. I have been falsely accused. Some wicked people sent a prostitute to my sacred abode and then charged me with false charges of rape and public deceit. But I am innocent like wolf, innocent of the blood of our prophet Yusuf bin Yaqub, biblical Joseph son of Jacob. Unfortunately, the inquirer fell into the hands of the ruthless bodyguards. Coco, the son of the Satan, shouted at him with a coarse voice like an angry ogre what your crime is. The inquirer said, I am not a criminal. I have been falsely accused. Some wicked people sent a prostitute to my sacred abode and then charged me with false charges of rape and public deceit. But I am innocent just like the wolf was innocent of the blood of our prophet Yusuf bin Yaqub, biblical Joseph son of Jacob. Do not bother about that, Coco said again in a harsh voice. Every suspect here is innocent in his opinion. But why did the police dogs throw you into the dungeon? I do not know the reason. I am an innocent man. The firstborn son of Satan said angrily, Listen, Joker, I ask you for the last time, and I don't want to hear your funny answer. Why were you arrested by the police? I am a social counselor. Some people out of jealousy reported me to the police, and I was arrested for rape and social fraud. What kind of social deception do you practice? Is it religious, political, or are you a lawyer? I am the greatest of all these great men of our community. What kind of prankster are you? I told you I'm not a scammer. I am a good citizen who has dedicated most of his time to doing good for the community. You crook, Coco shouted angrily, if you want me to pluck out your nails and rip off your ears, repeat those lies again. You can fool people out there, but not me. I am a dangerous criminal and the son of a notorious criminal. I spent 40 years of my life cheating, deceiving, stealing, extorting, kidnapping, raping, and killing. So, I can smell a criminal a mile away. Ever since I saw you, I knew you were a big prankster. I warn you one last time not to play games with the most ruthless and dangerous gang leader in this city. I am the god of this country. Even Satan trembles when he sees me. Every police officer pees in his khaki uniform when he hears my name. I was arrested for public deception and rape of a prostitute, extorting, kidnapping, raping, and killing. So, I can smell it. What is your profession? I am a witch doctor, an African Jaws, and a great sorcerer. So, you are some kind of a magician charlatan who practices black magic. You must have collected half of the city's money through public deceit and sorcery. Now we want to make a deal with you. We are the power and authority inside the prison. If you refuse the financial deal, we will torture you mercilessly day and night. If you don't believe me, ask your old criminal friend Mr. Osman Al-Taib. At first, he tried to impugn my authority, but when we beat him hard, he obeyed and agreed to pay us monthly for his protection here. What kind of deal are you talking about? I do not like to be involved in any crime. We didn't ask you to commit a crime for us. For this kind of dirty work, we are better than you. Our deal is that you pay us money for your safety and protection in this prison as bodyguards. I don't want you to protect me. I will take care of myself. It means that you are as stubborn as your buddy, the old fox Osman Satan Al-Taib. But we have good treatment for this kind of disease. My brave fellows, please raise this impostor so that I can teach him a hard lesson. In the same 4 criminals, Al-Wash, Shakash, Abu Shakora, and the magician Omar stretched out the fraudster and the usurper before their angry leader. Then Coco Wad Al-Shaitan started hitting Hajj Muhammad with the same stick and with the same force. The witch doctor's big mouth started to shout loudly. His scream caused 240 convicted prisoners and suspects to crowd around the ruthless bodyguards and their 2 helpless victims, the notorious womanizer and witch doctor the devil Muhammad, and the vile old man, the dirty rapist Osman Shaitan Al-Taib. The gang leader felt proud when he saw the large crowd and thus showed a lot of strength and ruthlessness. The magician loudly began to shout for help. Then Coco ibn Iblis, the accursed devil, ordered his men to insert a piece of dirty cloth into the mouth of the great Antichrist. A large, contaminated piece of filthy rag was fetched and then forcibly inserted into the big mouth of Hajj Muhammad until he was suffocated. 10 minutes after the relentless beating, the child of Satan Coco ordered his criminal men to leave the prankster's body. The 4 bodyguards quickly left the huge body. The witch doctor's body fell to the solid ground. Hajj Muhammad suffered more injuries and pain than the old man Satan Al-Taib. The famous sorcerer started moaning like a wounded beast. Now he can neither move nor cry. Coco approached him and spat in his face and said harshly, "Can we make the deal now, or do you still think you can protect yourself against us? We have many ways to torture you. This is only the beginning." Hajj Muhammad used his head to respond negatively to the gang leader's request. Coco felt challenged and humiliated in front of his men and the onlookers. Then the outraged son of Satan grabbed Hajj Muhammad's ears and began to rip them off and take them out of his watermelon-like big head. Some of the prisoners closed their eyes. Others turned their faces away. The evil old man started crying for his vile friend and then closed his eyes as well. Nevertheless, the bodyguards and some ruthless criminals continued to look on in complete amazement until Hajj Muhammad's ears were ripped off by Coco. Blood gushed out from his deformed head like a red liquid. Then the son of Satan raised the witch doctor's ears, which were completely covered in blood, and started to roar like an angry beast. Some of the prisoners are terrified by the horrific scene, and so they start screaming for help. Their screams made Coco angrier. He started kicking, slapping, and hitting everyone. The Rangers joined their ringleader in his brutal attack. The terrified prisoners kept running and screaming inside the dorm. Meanwhile, Hajj Muhammad and the old man are trodden under the feet of the crowd and are almost killed in a stampede. When the commotion rose inside dorm number 13, some of the jailers ventured to see what was going on inside that bottomless pit. None of them wanted to enter or go near Coco's dungeon. They were used to hearing some screams every now and then of a prisoner inside that place. But today they sensed that something extraordinary had happened. When they looked through the bars, they saw each prisoner chasing another inmate. However, the prison guards could not figure out the cause of the deadly fight. They're afraid to go in and stop the disturbance. Sirens are blaring throughout the prison building. 3 false codes are declared before the correct one is declared. The red code for a fire, the black for a possible bomb, and the purple for hostage-taking. The prison guards of the other dorm were also confused and then started running aimlessly. Finally, they hear the orange code indicating the heavy human causalities. Another announcement followed, directing them to the correct place where violent prisoners were. Every prison guard, every police officer, and every medical staff must proceed immediately to dorm number 13. Please be fully armed and ready for a possible violent confrontation with these dangerous criminals. The siren went on for 20 minutes while this announcement was repeated over and over. It was considered an urgent emergency. In a short time, hundreds of prison guards, police officers armed to the teeth, and medical personnel gathered around dorm number 13. Even the cooking staff, sweepers, carpenters, and other maintenance staff who were not ordered to attend presented themselves. The announcer finally came in, holding a microphone to the loudspeaker in his hand. So, he began loudly announcing to the violent prisoners in dorm 13 that they should surrender. Although he repeated his declaration with several threats, the quarrel did not stop. By this time, the quarrel had evolved from a quarrel into a fight, and from a fight into a deadly battle. Many of the prisoners were killed or seriously injured and fell to the ground. Finally, they heard the loudspeaker announcing the start of the attack. Every prison guard and policeman must be ready to attack. First, we will shoot tear gas and then attack. Please be brave and fight against these violent detainees. Fight the good fight as you are brave vigilantes and guards protecting the community. After that, tear gas was thrown through every window and door inside dorm number 13. When the smoke spread everywhere, the attack began. The prisoners in the other dorms started screaming loudly, thinking that the prison guards had set fire to dorm number 13 because they wanted to burn the inmates alive. The chief of the jailers ordered his men to throw tear gas in all dorms. The orders were obeyed, and thus tear gas was spread throughout the prison. Al-Ghadarif Central Prison has become like a huge building that was attacked by some of Al-Qaeda, Hezbollah, Hamas, or ISIS suicide bombers. When the police force entered dorm number 13, they found that the battle had stopped. Tear gas has blinded every inmate. They handcuffed them all and took them all outside their dorm. Then they made them kneel in rows. The seriously injured prisoners were taken on stretchers to the hospital. Among the seriously injured were the evil sheikh, the old serpent Osman Satan al-Taib, and the vile sorcerer, Hajj Muhammad. The old dragon is crushed and his nose breathing out fire with venom, while the great mage had been seriously trampled underfoot and had completely lost his ears. When the head of the prison guards questioned the surrendered prisoners about the cause of the deadly fight, he was told that a new suspect from another dorm has challenged the authority of the ruthless ringleader Coco Wad al-Shaitan and his evil gang. Such a challenge had never happened before, so Coco got angry and cut off the opponent's ears. The head of the jailers inquired about the white weapon that the dangerous gang leader used to cut off the suspect's ears. All eyewitnesses swore to God that Coco did not use a knife, dagger, or sword to tear off his ears except for his bare hands. However, this report was not accepted by the head of the prison guards. He could not believe that someone could rip off the inmate's ears with his bare hands. All the prisoners of dorm number 13 were forced to remain on their knees while handcuffed throughout that night. On the next day, the gang leader Coco Wad al-Shaitan and his gangsters were severely beaten by the prison guards and then locked up in isolated cells. The prison guards used long clubs and whips to punish the violent gangsters. Meanwhile, Hajj Muhammad and Mr. Osman al-Taib remained in the intensive care unit of the prison hospital. Yet the old man became permanently lame, and the witch doctor forever deaf and earless. Those who knew the mighty sorcerer Hajj Muhammad and his clean business of black magic before interpreted the deadly fight in a spiritual way. They believed that the great witch doctor unleashed billions of his invisible evil, impure spiritual servants, and their demonic leader, the fearsome Dracula Dal Doom, and that those demons had possessed Coco's gang members and other prison inmates and staff. So those billions of devils rebelled and caused a deadly battle between their leader Lucifer, Cuckoo, the son of Satan himself, and his demonic host. Among the defeated enemies were the famous wealthy business tycoon the Old Man Mr. Osman al-Taib, his friend, the mighty witch doctor Hajj Muhammad, hundreds of jailers and police officers, and all the rest of prisoners. Some eyewitnesses inside the prison claimed to have seen the Sack of Darkness, Mr. Doom, when he manifested himself inside the haunted dorm number 13 and unleashed billions of demons that possessed the body of everyone in prison.